Good evening, good Friday evening. Well, not Good Friday, but good Friday evening. I hope it's I hope it's good. I hope it's evening. If it's not, have a good whatever time period you're in. Um just had an early end to my day and didn't have much going on tonight, so why not do a stream? That's what this is about. Completely open panel, open topic, open comments, questions, whatever. Until they irritate me and I decide to censor them. Let's see if I have some tweets. I think I might. Let's check it on the news just briefly to see if it's changed from Trump and Israel to something else. Oh, a solar storm hitting Earth may make northern lights. Wow. Wait, does this mean the computer's going to go down and I'm not going to be able to stream? Okay, let's check out. This looks like news. Map of northern lights forecast show. Because sometimes we see them up here. So I wonder. I'll try to stream it if they're up here. We have a ways to go, but they're ad block. Paywalling me. Could be visible down into Alabama. All right, is there a site that's going to actually let me read it? National Weather Service. The first G4 geomagnetic watch since 2005. Wow. Okay, finally something interesting in the news. Ooh, there's videos for it. All right. Hey, how about we watch this video? One sec. Spaceweather.gov. Wow. Okay, hang on. I'm in the yellow band. The little yellow. So what does that mean? Let's see. .gov. We have a space weather department. G5 conditions observed. Key messages extreme. Here, I might just share this. Okay. They have the ratings. G5. What do that mean? Extreme geomagnetic storm impacts. Widespread voltage control problems. And protective. Here, I'm just going to share this. I don't want to feed the conspiracists, but this is coming from spaceweather.gov. Look, we are at G5. Hang on, let me show you. Oop, hang on. This other page. No. Oh, wait. This is where I want. This G5 conditions observed. First, okay. Key messages. Extreme G5 conditions reached Earth at 6:54 p.m. Eastern. So that's like 3 something my time. That's like 3 hours ago ish. Geomagnetic storming is likely to persist through the weekend as several additional. It just changed it. Oh, As I was reading it, it got downgraded to a G4. As I was reading it, you could go back and watch the stream and see was this G5 where my finger is, and I saw it like flash as it updated, and now it says G4 because the position that the words were in when I was reading shifted. Several Earth-directed coronal mass ejections. Okay, what are those? A coronal mass ejection. Oh my God! Are in transit to Earth's outer atmosphere. I have to look this up at once. We'll come back to this. Coronal mass ejection, like something from the sun that's ejected. Coronal mass ejection. Let's see what that is. A coronal mass ejection is a significant. Oh, y'all got to see this picture from Wikipedia. This is the coolest stuff on the stream so far. Where are all the geeks when I need them? A coronal mass ejection. Look at this. Is a significant ejection of magnetic field and accompanying plasma mass from the sun's corona into the heliosphere. CMEs are often associated with solar flares and other forms of solar activity, but a broadly accepted theoretical has not been established. Okay, so that's a coronal mass ejection. Oh, now it's back up to G5. Hang on. Just so y'all know, I need to capture this. Hang on. That's not the right page. Oh, shit. Don't. Hang on. Come back. All right, here we go. Because every time I share, it changes to... Look, G5. Look where my cursor is. G5. Remember it was G4? A few minutes ago, it's back up to G5 now. At 6:54. This is what it said earlier, and then it changed, and now it's back to this. So make of that what you will. Impacts, high VHF communicate, GPS, power grid, spacecraft, satellite navigation, and other technology. Critical infrastructure operators have been notified. So the people that are supposed to know about this know. The last extreme event occurred with the Halloween storms in October of 2003. I've never heard of those. The Halloween storms. Power outages in Sweden and damaged transformers just from like this. Look. Oh, wow. Oh, wait. No, never mind. That was me running my cursor. I thought that just happened. Like the solar storm hit their website. The source has been... Oh, I see why it changed. Never mind. The conspiracy solved. It was me. It was user conspiracy. Look, as I move my cursor down, they changed. That's what happened. So then I'm not sure. Okay, ignore everything I said then, because I misinterpreted how their website works. I thought this was like their top news, telling us this is what's currently going on. But this is just the first tab you can scroll through for information. But this says geomagnetic storming likely to persist this weekend, May 10th, 2024. So this is recent. And then maybe this is the latest. I don't like the way their website's organized. This would normally be separate post, like chronological post, but they have them in this format instead. So I guess published May 10th, Friday, 23:58. Friday 20. So this is just the most recent news item. Okay, so it is G5, 6:54 Eastern. So all of this stuff would apply. The source has mostly been a large, complex sunspot cluster that is 17 times the diameter of Earth. Additional activity from the region is still expected. Wow. Did y'all know about all this? Hey, Auntie, are you catching up on all of this solar storm information that I just posted? Spaceweather.gov, of which I did not even know we had a department, monitors like solar flare storms, and they rate them, and G5 is the highest, and we're at a G5 right now. They just announced it. At 6:54 Eastern time, we hit G5, and it says all the things that could happen. And it says there's a big sun, like a sunspot, and that's what's generating this. And they said that we can expect more activity. So I guess it's not over. And we looked up what a coronal mass ejection is, and it's this magnetic field burst from the sun, and they have like some of those could happen during this G5 as well. So it was all interesting, and we're right in the middle of it now. So I don't know if I go off a stream or anything, it was probably the sun that zapped me. And then we watched a little video on it. So that's where we are now. So yeah, it is geeky and nerdy, and so I'm kind of caught up in it, but at the same time, oh, and this is the best part of all, Auntie. Because of this, you're going to be able to see the northern lights possibly in there's a whole big zone that stretches all the way to parts of Alabama. And so I'm in the yellow part of the zone. So depending on where you live, you might get to see northern lights tonight as part of this G5 event. Okay, wait, National Weather Service. Yep, they just upgraded to G5 as well on their Twitter. Wow. And that was just the first news story. Let's see what else happened. Israel, Michael Cohen's going to testify at Trump. I remember all those people from when he was president and the scandal was breaking, and now they're all back in court over the trial. We have to see them all over again. All right, that looks like all the news. Let me find some tweets. Okay, we did the feminist university kids. Oh, here's a good one from David Cray. I really like him. If you don't follow him, Krae. I believe he's Canadian. But don't cite me as a authoritative source. No one is a group. Everyone is an individual. Privileged discourse is fallacy, mythologizing of other people's lives, weaponization of misplaced resentment, and enactment of prejudice, not justice. Each person is responsible for his or her own choices and character. Start there. I'm going to read that part again. Each person is responsible for his or her own choices and character. Start there. That is individual. He says no one is a group. Everyone is an individual. That is the starting point for the individual. Personal choice, individual freedom, personal responsibility, etc. The locus and the unit that's at the center of the model or the system or that paradigm is the individual. That's the level you begin on, the starting point. Start there, he says. I wanted to save this one for Lib. Actually, the next two. Communism doesn't, nor can it ever work, which is why you need to force it on people. Humans are social animals, not a species being, as Marx suggested. Again, we kind of see that individual versus, in this case, it's social animals, like individual animals or organisms, compared to the species scale, which would be the group level. So the analogy kind of does hold, as Marx suggested. Is it Marx that said the highest unit of consciousness or the highest unit of society is two people? You have to have at least two people to have a starting point or a significant unit of society, that the individual doesn't rise to the whatever criteria or standard of being considered a social unit. It takes at least two. And correct me if I'm wrong, somewhere in the back of my brain that's floating around. It might not have been Marx. And I have another video, but I do want to wait for Lib, mainly because I'm going to need her to hold my hand through it and explain it to me in terms that make it all make sense. So I'll save that for her if she comes back, I hope. Okay, I guess that's all the Twitter. So yeah, topics. I don't know. I don't know if, but when and if she does, I have that post and a video I want to share. so that she can help me understand. And hey, Chuck, evening, by the way. Um, I didn't really have anything tonight. I just wanted to kind of do a chill open stream. I did have that identity formation model that I wanted to share kind of as part of mental health month, but I'm not sure if Friday night's the time to do it. I might save that for a day stream and a couple of videos kind of related. So let me see who's streaming now. Maybe we could go spy on somebody. Oh, let's see. Me, Flow State. We could go maybe spy on him a little bit. Wow, that's about it. Not really a lot of people. Like, it's interesting. And then I think Easy's probably going to do verbal combat tonight. So that's a possibility. I just opened this like to have a place to go for people that didn't want any of the other stuff. It's not really I'm not really trying to draw a huge audience. It's mainly for me to have a place to hang out with whoever wants to. Verbal combat, test your might. Yeah, in about 45 minutes. Here, I'll post the link. The verbal combat's going to start tonight. And you never know who's going to show up. So your experience may vary. There you go. You just chilling. Yeah, that's kind of what I'm doing too. Chris had asked me, he was going to do some movies. He said if I stream, to let him know, but I have a feeling he's still out there working on that car. He'll see the Discord stuff when he comes in. Yeah, in the meantime, if you want to come on or have a topic, I could try to find one of those question things again. Or we could talk to the AI. Um, oh my God. 100 podcast questions by category. Funny, juicy, deep. Ooh. What about deep? Funny. If you had to eat one food daily for the rest of your life, what would it be? I pretty much already do that. Like that's all I get all day long, or I have to eat at least that, but I could eat other stuff as well. I'm not sure the question, but if there's like one, because you can't really just live on one type of food. Probably guacamole. I could eat like an entire, those you buy the avocados in the store and you have the little packet mixes. It's like a powder, and you take it home and you mix it in a mixing bowl, and you make this big giant bowl of guacamole. I used to sit there with the entire, like I'd make one of those just for myself. You get 3 or 4 avocados in the mix, and you make a big giant bowl of guacamole. You sit there with a bag of chips, and I would just tear through that whole thing. That's how much guacamole I can eat. And so if I had to eat one bowl of guacamole a day, that would almost be, when I say like I don't want to go to heaven because it seems boring. If heaven was like a bowl of guacamole every day, that's one of the things that was in heaven, that might swing me, honestly. So that's the food I would pick. I hope. Yeah, I do too. He seemed good today. He thinks he's going to get the car done. He feels proud of himself about that and accomplished, and as well he should. And he seemed like the old Chris. He really did. Oh, it made your lip pierce. Oh, your lip piercing swell up. Yikes. Yeah, that would be a tough one. I would probably choose the. I'd probably just have to get rid of the lip piercing. Was this like way back? Not recently, I hope. Yeah, I do love the avocados. What's the funniest thing that ever happened to you during and they hey vacation slash work day? Oh God, that's all kind of. I'm one of these people that like to have fun at work. So if work is not fun, I have to either make it fun or I usually don't stay there very long. So I don't know. I have to think. If something comes up, I'll say it. It's been so long since I've had a work day or a vacation. It feels like all of COVID was a vacation, or all of since COVID's been a vacation. But at the same time, I've worked more during then than I ever did before COVID. I did more work during COVID on my own, for free, volunteer than I ever did at a real job, and didn't get paid for any of it. And so I worked more, but it was more like a vacation because I didn't have to actually go to a job. Um, what's the silliest reason you've ever gotten in trouble or missed an appointment? Usually, when I've gotten in trouble, it's because I deserve to get in trouble. I can't think of a time. Well, other than that time when that girl told me I could open my Christmas present in kindergarten, and I ripped it open, and the teacher fussed at me. And there was another time, but I don't know if I tell it on street. We might save that for Patreon. The silliest reason you've ever gotten in trouble or missed an appointment. I don't really miss appointments, so I can't think of one of those. Well, there's stupid things like I've told this story before. I consider it silly, where I got voted out of that committee, that mental health committee I was on, because one of the ladies there said I talk with my hands, and that's a sign of violence. And I said, no, I'm gay and I'm from the South, and I talk with my hands. And she said she overruled that. Like that explanation was not the right one. She said, no, it means you're violent. And I'm thinking, no, I'm not violent. You have no, and then she got all the other people riled up, and they all like got together, and right there, it was like a impromptu tribal council, and I had the charter with me, and I told them you can't. I said, look, these were all mental health people. Like we were all peer mental health, like consumers and clients ourselves. So none of this. And there was one representative that was like, she was also one of us, but she was also part of the official administrative bureaucracy. So she was like the official representative of this group to the rest of the system. And I had the charter, and I said, you can't do this. You can't just vote someone out of the group like this. There's a procedure for if you have a complaint or an issue or a grievance, and it requires this. See, here's the charter. And they said, we don't care. We have a majority. We're going to vote you out anyway. And I turned to the representative, and I'm saying, are you watching this? They can't do this. Like you have to step in and tell them that they can't do this. And she just like threw up her hands, and she was so passive. She didn't want any conflict, and she just sat there. And so they voted me out. And like a few weeks later, it got disbanded. The whole group got disbanded because they were not supposed to do that. They had a new lady come in, it was part of this department, and they had a new lady come in to supervise that department, and she was like reviewing what worked, what didn't work, etc. And I told her what happened, and she's like, "Oh, don't worry, they're getting disbanded anyway. She's already reviewed them." So that was to me one of the silliest reasons I've ever been kicked out, gotten in trouble. I never heard anything like that, but that's how they are here. If you're tall, I went to a training where they said that if you're male and tall, first, if you're male, they should have just stopped there, because if you're male, you're scary. But if you're male and tall, you have to be aware of the impression you make on other people, and that some people could find that intimidating. And I'm like, that's their problem. I don't have to do anything. I'm Generation X gay. And we grew up with, if you have a problem with who we sleep with, who we're attracted to, who we kiss, who we hold hands with, the way we talk, our speech, our arm movements, our hand movements, whatever, that is on you. If you want to be a homophobe, I don't have to do anything. I'm supposed to be myself, loud, proud, and yes, queen, and be yourself and all that. And so I've carried that principle to every one of my identities. If you have a problem with my autism or my rocking, that's on you. If you have a problem with I'm tall or I'm male, that's on you. I don't internalize your shit. I don't take responsibility for somebody else's complex or how they were raised because they were raised sheltered and not desensitized to the normal stimuli they would encounter in a modern day environment. And men are part of that. And so are black people. So if you were sheltered away from men and black people, and the first time you meet them is in college or in the workforce, and you need all this DEI to help you adjust to that, it doesn't have to be that way. Like we should have to pay the price for your shortcomings that you missed out on because you were raised sheltered. So they do stuff like that here. That's normal. Like they react to things here that I've never seen other places react to. So every silly reason probably happened up here. The weirdest gift you've ever received. Let's try some of the deep ones. Interesting podcast questions. If you had the power to change one event in your life, what would it be? Well, I mean, that's kind of an easy one. If the power includes having someone not die that died, and I can make them not die, it would definitely 100% be that event. But if it's like an event, I have some kind of, like, if I could go back and change something or make a different choice or something, and it doesn't involve me reversing the order of nature, then there's probably several. Some of them, I don't know if I want to get into on stream. It could be Patreon content, maybe, or at least Discord content. But there are things growing up with my mom, my family, my stepdad, like authority figure, like the immediate people responsible for me, that I didn't know. And again, I was the child, so I think ultimately the responsibility is on the adults. But if they didn't know how to do it, they didn't know how to do it. But I didn't always understand how to communicate or articulate what I was going through or my needs or how to get people to listen to me. That I wasn't necessarily a bad child or acting out. And I don't think they were fully aware that the problems were not as scary or like overwhelming as they might have seemed, and that there were very simple solutions for them with the right support. So if we had understood all that then like we do now, I would have done things differently to make the family more functional, like the dysfunction to be less, to have less of an impact, and maybe have the family more stable. There's things I think I could have done myself and things I think I could have helped the family do now that I didn't know how to do back then, even if the intention was there. And so things like that I would do differently. Also, college, I made a decision because I was in college early. I skipped my senior year and went to college, and decided it wasn't for me. And I went a year and a half, and then I decided it wasn't for me, and I sat out for 4 years and kind of became a slacker and just bebopped around. I lived in Austin, Texas for a while, etc. I might have come up with a better option. If I was going to not do college, I might have come up with a better option than just drifting. I might have like replaced it with some kind of career track or job or something like that. My head was not in that place at the time. I was high school age. I was at the stage where my class that I went to high school with was just graduating and starting college themselves. So I didn't have the life wisdom that I have now. Or I would find a way maybe to continue college just in a different way or at a different school that met my needs better. I didn't know I didn't know I had those kind of options back then either. And so I might find a way to complete college earlier with a better, like a more useful degree. So I think I'd make like practical decisions that affect my career, my ability to support myself, my ability to earn a living, etc. Those are the kind of events or decisions, if I had to go back and change, that I would change. Also, I didn't have male mentors or role models around, so I didn't learn things like how to change the oil and how to manage money and whatever fathers teach their sons, people that have functioning fathers that pass down how to live in society onto their sons. I didn't get that. So I would like try to find ways on my own to get more of that, or try to find more male mentors, or be open to, because there were like people, like my mom had some male friends, and they were like older, like counselors or teacher mentor type people that I think tried to do that, but they didn't always know how, and I didn't know what I needed from them. I didn't know that I needed them to teach me to change oil. I could not have told them that as a kid. Like, hey, I need you to teach me to change the oil. I need you to teach me how to not get fired from a job. I needed you to teach me how to, like, whatever. All One of my majors was pre-med. When I returned back to college, I was like really hyped up on Carl Jung, and he was a psychiatrist. So I majored in pre-psychiatry, and I was going to be a psychiatrist. I said, if it was good enough for Carl Jung, it's at least a good starting point for me. So let me do psychiatry. And in my little small college, that was pre-med. And then you go on to some other school. And so my first major was pre-med. And I took a semester of it. And it was like biology, basically. And I on my own, I came up with this. I didn't really talk to anybody. Nobody told me this. I didn't read it anywhere. I created this narrative on my own based on my assumptions, intuitions, impressions, and just what I knew about the society I lived in, which was Louisiana. I said, I can learn the medical stuff, no problem. I can learn the biology. I can learn the organic chemistry. I can pass the MCAT. I can get the MD. That I have no doubt that I'm capable of that. I am not concerned that I'm going to struggle with that kind of stuff. What I'm worried about is if I do all of that, you have to have social skills. You have to be able to network with doctors. You need to be able to get residencies, the right connections to get the right recommend. I said there's a social set of skills that if I don't have none of the MCAT scores or the degrees or the organic chemistry is going to matter. And no matter how grounded I am in that, if I can't navigate Louisiana politics and Louisiana bureaucracy, I may as well not major in medicine. And I talked myself out of majoring in medicine because of I had this idea that my skill set alone, and this was like early 20s, my skill set alone was not going to be enough. I needed these soft social skills that I knew I did not have. Even then, I didn't know to call it autism or anything. I just knew I didn't have them. And I watched the people that did have them and how they succeeded. And I knew I was not able to do that. And at least at the time. And this was all in my head by myself. And so based on all of that story, I switched my major to something else. I had multiple majors by the time I got out of there. But so that was an example of something I might do different with what I know now. Like I might look more clearly at when like I start to tell myself those kind of stories. Go talk to actual doctors. Go find people that were nerds with no social skills and still somehow managed to get a job as a doctor. Go talk to biology professors or counselors and tell them my concern. Like there's so many things I could do now than just talk like rationalize not majoring in medicine just because. But it was interesting how even like those are all of the actual issues that did follow me into the workplace my whole life, plagued with them, was everything that in my mind I had somehow told myself would be a concern, and for this reason I should maybe think twice about taking this career path, etc. All of those things turned out to be real issues, just like not in the way I thought, but that is what turned out. So my intuition was correct, that there are some skills that you need to be successful that I don't have. But it's interesting that I picked up on that all on my own. Like nobody talked about autism back then, or they just knew I was weird. I was quirky or eccentric or weird, but it's because I was gifted and a nerd, and like gifted people were weird and quirky. So I put it down to that. I didn't know there was like this additional reason that I was weird and quirky. So that's my thoughts on all this. Oh God, I hope this entire Friday night is not me doing this. Please. We got 4 on Twitter and 2 on YouTube. Thank you, YouTube. And thank you, Twitter. And by the way, Twitter, I don't know if you know this, but there's like a little chat box next to the chat, because you can't see the YouTube comments, I don't believe, on Twitter. But you're able to chat as well, and I can see them on StreamYard. So if any Twitter people want to interact, you can interact through Twitter, and I will still get your comments. Yeah, we need people. Yes, there's a lot of things. But I'm going to say this too, to be balanced. There are things I think we need to learn from the kids that they have to teach us as well. So I think it's less of a let us teach you, like let us, before now, what is it, the long tail or something? Before now, you could pass on, here's what I had to learn to be successful in society, and here's what I need to teach my children, and then those children can learn that and pass it to their children. We've accelerated so fast that I don't know if what was successful in my generation is what the next generation needs. So passing down the values that help me succeed, which they didn't, but some of that's me. But the values that help me may not be the values that are going to help the next generation. And so it's less of like this authoritarian handing down of here's what you need to know. We as adults think you need to know as a kid. It's more like a collaboration. Like, okay, look, I've traveled this road. Here's all the things I learned. I can give you these tips. I think the kids are working in areas that people my age are never going to be as familiar with. So I think I have a lot to learn from them. So it's more like, look, we can teach you this. We can take your wisdom on this into consideration and kind of collaborate between the next generation and the current generations instead of like a top down. I think we've turned the curve from the point where we can just presume to hand down a stable tradition. I think there is a tradition, there is a set of values, but I don't think it's as stable and linear as it used to be. And I think it's not everyone is going to benefit from it. I think there's other people that need other values. So I think that kind of idea of passing on one universal set of values from one generation to the next, that might be one of the things that I hesitate to say postmodernists, but let's just say people around that generation might have gotten right in some sense. That there are new forms and new needs and new messages and media and all, etc., that need to emerge. Like the old ways are not going to 100% work for everyone anymore. That is some of it, yes. And I'm going to be honest, I would have benefited from where I resisted this strongly. If people tried to like, I'm teaching you this, and you're going to learn it whether you want to or not, because I know that it's better for you, and you may not understand it now, but when you get to be my age, you're going to appreciate that I taught this to you. I had people try to take that apart, and I resisted it very strongly. It did not work on me, but I would have definitely benefited from what they were trying to teach me if they could have found a way. Their instincts in trying to teach it to me were right. I was wrong to resist that. I think it was the approach I was resisting, but not the message. But if they could have found a way to teach that in a different way, I think they could have reached me and I could have benefited from it. Now, having said all that, yes, they're kids, and yes, you are the authority figure in the classroom or as the parent, etc. At the same time, kind of a best practices things, even if that's true, I still found I got the best result when I could collaborate or when I could kind of relax that authoritarianism where I could and kind of collaborate more, not necessarily as equals, but as collaborators. It, and of course in my head I knew the model where I was the authority figure, they were the children, etc., and it was my responsibility to ultimately hold that line at all times. And so that was on me. But within that framework, within those parameters, with that knowledge, I was still able to be. I was like the cool chief. I wasn't heavy handed or authoritarian. We worked together. In fact, the first time I got my own classroom, it was a normal substitute job. I had taught at this school before, and they liked me, and so I tended to take a lot of jobs at this school. And it was a middle school class, and the teacher had just suddenly stopped showing up. He just didn't show up at school anymore, and the school kept calling him. They kept trying to find out why, and nobody knew what was going on with him. So they had been using substitutes, and this was like, I don't know, February maybe. And so they had been using substitutes because they needed to finish out the school year, and they didn't have a teacher. The teacher just vanished. And so they had tried like 2 or 3 or 4 substitutes before me. Hey Moose, what's up? Yo. And and I didn't know all this when I came in. Like I said, it was just a normal job. And the kids were so rowdy, like nobody could control them at all to teach them. They were really resisting. And apparently the teacher himself was kind of a pushover. And so they were very resistant to these new substitutes coming in and trying to teach them. And they had driven them away. Like they had done everything they could to drive away these teachers. And the school wasn't telling me any of this. Of course not. And one of the teachers told me that the guy before me that came in to try to teach him, he was bribing them with like $1 a day. He was paying them to behave. That's how bad it was. And so when I heard all this, the first few days, it was just a normal job. And then at some point when they saw that I was actually going to stay, or there was a chance I was going to stay and I wasn't going to be driven away by these kids, the school offered me the vacancy, and I was going to have the class the rest of the year and finish out the year with these kids. So when that became the situation, I knew I had to take a different approach with the kids instead of just getting through the day. And so I went to school the next day, and I told them, I said, I'm here for the rest of the year. I said, I'm not going anywhere. I said, you're not driving me away, and I'm not paying you to behave. That's ridiculous. There's no way I'm doing that. I said, so we have got to find a way to make this work. And here's what I will do for you. I said, I am willing to work with you if we could come up with a way to all get through the end of the semester, meet our learning goals, meet the performance benchmarks, etc. And I will, whatever way we come up with, I will honor that as long as you do. And so they were so surprised that, first of all, I think that they secretly wanted a teacher that wasn't going to leave, that they couldn't drive away. So once I established that I was going to be that teacher, that turned a lot of them around right there. And then when I they saw I was going to take an authoritarian approach, but that they had some influence and a voice so they could collaborate with me and have a say in how the rest of the year went with this new teacher who was not going to leave, that they were stuck with whether they wanted or not. I think that won the rest of them over. And so I didn't have a problem at all. Like I loved the class. That was one of my favorite jobs up to that point. And so, and then kind of as a spinoff of that, I would fill in for the special ed teachers. And then that's when they saw how good I was at special ed, and eventually would end up getting my own special ed classrooms in the later years. So that is my experience with kids being the kids and the adults being the adults. Moose, what's up? I hope your day is going better than it was the other day. And by the way, stunning bravura performance the other day with midlife. I was so, if y'all haven't watched that stream, Moose stood his ground just splendidly. I was so inspired and proud for him against midlife. For some reason, decided to come up and pick a fight with Moose. He read his own stuff into Moose's story, because everything he was describing had nothing to do with Moose's story and everything to do about how he was acting on the panel. So, but Moose handled it just very based, very mature, very, he stood his ground. He spoke his truth. Yeah, no, I like Born. I like Barnabas. I get. I think he's a great addition to the Panelverse. I definitely enjoy his participation. But I do think whatever he saw in Moose's story, I don't know where that came, because nobody else saw it that way. Moose was describing an experience I myself have been through multiple times, so I know I have lived the truth of it. It resonated for me on the atomic level. Like, it was 100% sincere. Oh, excellent. Oh, it's a backup. Is it with the same company or different? Hopefully a different cut. That doesn't sound like a very functional company. They're going to have more problems than just you coming in and offering to help with things. That's suspicious right there, that a company is that insular, that they're threatened by outside. But I know exactly what you mean. It's the we were talking about that with the bear conversation. The stuck on a trail with a bear or a man. It's this, like, it's androphobia is what it is, fear of men, and a lot of it's taught. But I get that too. Like, women will react to things like pitch, vocal tone, body movement in ways that I've never experienced until I came up here. In fact, I remember, I'm going to tell this story. This was my first encounter that I can remember with what I call white ladies. Some people might call Karens, that kind of upper middle class, very sheltered, highly sensitive female. It was in Vegas. I was like, I had just lost Mike, and I was part of that camping group, and we did a lot of camping. That was like that was what was keeping me sane. So it was like, I would have been like 20, 30, 36-ish. So I was well into adulthood. So this is the first time, because we don't have these types where I come from, and we do not have these types in Vegas. So I don't know how this lady ended up in the camping group, but we were going camping for a weekend, and she knew some people in the group, but she was new to most of the group, and so we were all meeting her for the first time, and so we knew that this new lady was coming, and we were going to get to meet her. We were all excited. We love meeting new people. And so me and the lady I came up with show up at the campsite, and this lady's already there, and she has 2 young kids with her daughter and a friend, and they're both like middle schoolers. And so we set up our camp, and then we decide to go over and say hi and introduce ourselves while we wait for the rest of the group to show up. And, we're real friendly and excited to see her. We introduce, and she's friendly, and we start talking, and she asks what we do, and my friend says whatever she does, and I say, well, I said I'm not doing anything right now, but before that I was teaching. And then the friend asked about her girls, like, how old are your girls? And she says their age, and I said, oh, so they're in middle school. I used to teach middle school. That's all I said. And the lady says, she goes, yeah, I can see where it's gotten you. And I'm like, that is such a weird response. I think this lady's like reacting to something that I can't figure out, but there's something about me that she's not responding well to, and I don't know what it is. So we just kept chatting and chatting, and she had this like little Coleman stove she had just bought. It was brand new, and she was taking it out of the box and trying to set it up, and she couldn't figure it out. And she was like telling us that, oh, I can't figure this out. And I said, oh, well, I said, I have a degree in technology. I might be able to help if you want me to take a look at it. I can sometimes figure these things out. And she says, well, teaching or technology, which is it? And I said, this lady these are not normal responses. She sounds hostile or defensive. And I don't know what I'm doing. I know now because I can analyze it after living up here. I know exactly what she was reacting to now. But this was my first encounter with one of these people. And then so we keep talking and chatting, and my friend's mostly doing the talking. And then the girls were off playing, and they come running back, and they're like, the girl says, mommy, we were playing, and hang on. I need to see if my microphone just went out. Yeah, okay. And we saw a caterpillar, and we used to see caterpillars all the time growing up. And I know that some of them can sting and some of them are perfectly harmless. And I said, did it look like the kind of caterpillar that can sting or the kind that doesn't sting? And the lady, she hisses at me. She says, shh, don't tell her that. I don't want my daughter to know that there's caterpillars out there that can sting. I said, oh, that's when I knew I was dealing with a nut. I said, oh my God. Like, that's how sheltered she had this girl. She didn't even want her to know that there were caterpillars out there that could sting. And that's one of the first things that you learn as a kid. If you don't find it on your own, the adults tell you, like, oh, don't touch that caterpillar. It's going to sting you. And then you touch it, it stings. And they'll be like, see, I told you not to touch it. She didn't even want her to know that caterpillars existed that had the ability to sting. That's the level of innocence she wanted the 7th grade girl living in. And so I just I said, I can't be around this lady. This is too crazy for me. I walked back to camp, and my friend walked over with me, and my friend thought she noticed it too. Well, what I think, looking back, she was Mama Bear. She had the 2 girls. There was a tall male walking up to the campsite. So I think she was already like a male alone among women. She already had her alarm set off, directed at me. And this was totally invisible to all of me. Because we don't have the women, every single one of them was not threatened by me. They would curse me out. They could yell at me. They could try to spank me. They could swat at me. Like, none of them were threatened by my height. I'm skinny. Like, none of them saw me as a threat. Up here, it's like Godzilla showed up on the city if you're a male. And then the kids, she was like protective of the kids. And when I started talking to the girl about the caterpillar, like I was like invading her childhood innocence, which now the queer theorists say is a good thing. But anyway, and then the Coleman stove was mansplaining. I didn't realize it at the time, but but see how her brain, she has that distortion field that distorts everything I was saying into something about he's a man explaining, he's a man intruding, he's a lone male, he's tall, he's telling her about stinging caterpillar, etc. And I wasn't even getting consent to talk to her or the daughter. I was just, because we talked to everybody. Not like up here, where one of the first things my friend told me was don't talk to people. And I said, what do you mean? He's like, when you're at the grocery store in line, don't talk to people. And I said, I don't even know what you're trying to tell me. Like, nothing you're saying makes sense. I don't even, like, it's not that I disagree. I don't even know what you're saying. I don't even know what don't talk to people means. It means don't fucking talk to people. He's serious. Like, when you're in line at the grocery store here, do not try to talk to these people. They will glare at you and you will get stink eye and hostility. They think there's something mentally wrong with talking to strangers in public. They don't even play music, like radio music in the grocery store. It's silent. So, Moose, after this one lady at the campsite, I've had like 30, 50, at least maybe up to 50 by now, because I've worked with them. They're everywhere. They're in the nonprofits, the mental health agencies, the medical offices, the Starbucks, the grocery stores. The whole culture is built around keeping them safe. And they have the men up here trained. This is White Knight Central. So I'm always the threat, like everywhere. It's like walking on eggshells, because when are you going to trip the alarm of making some woman nervous, and then the whole society is going to come to her side to vote you out of the group, or like tell you not to tell their kid about caterpillars, all those kind of weird reactions. Yeah, that is a good point, Auntie, because I've known some. I'm kind of mama bear myself. If people, because males have that protective instinct too, and if you go after somebody I care about, I'm Papa Bear for sure. But so I understand that, but to be in that state 100% of the day, in a constant state of anxiety about what could harm you or your kids, that's like at the level of pathology. And that is, you're right. It's not just protecting them from actual threats. It's protecting them from the challenge and adversity that they're going to need to grow up and thrive and be healthy children. Unless you can keep them in these like manicured, cultivated environments the rest of their life, which I think is the goal of some of the upper class, if they have the means to do that. Hey, Buster. Ooh, it's kind of weird noise.
Something happened to your audio.
It might be yours too.
Now
Can you?
you're good. You're good now.
There's something going on yours.
Oh, really?
Yeah, there's like a humming or a buzzing.
Oh, well, the
Yeah.
buzzing is from the laptop.
Oh, you know what? I just hit reduce background noise and it went away. So I guess StreamYard can
Oh,
filter it.
cool. Yeah, man. Like people have done that for me before too, and that like totally fixed it.
What you
Yeah,
got
man.
going on?
Not much, but I got a theory about like why women are being crazy around you, but like not just being you. I think from my experience, dude, women when they're on the rag, dude, that's they like fucking will be hateful and say things that like an alcoholic even wouldn't, like a drunk person wouldn't even say, you know? Like, I mean, some people, but like, I've known a lot of women and fucking, and even my sister, like, she's the sweetest woman, but like her time of the month, like, like she can hide it, but sometimes, man, it just comes out. Like she just, like, and she gets all hurt and shit. That's her way of taking it. And then there's other people's ways of taking it, other women's ways of taking their time of the month, and like, and I try to watch out for that and know exactly what date. I know what they were acting like, and like
Oh,
take notes of what date. And if you know you're going to see that person again after they've acted weird, take note of the date, because that next date of the next time of the month. Then again,
why can't they manage their own moods? Why do I have to
I
change
know,
my
dude. I
whole
know.
life
All my
once a month because of their biology?
my two serious girlfriends had periods. All, dude, fucking, it drove me up the wall, dude.
I mean, I grew up with women, and I definitely know that phenomenon, but up here it seems like not just once a month. It seems like the whole culture, 24 hours a day. I mean, 30,
Yeah, I mean
30.
that's just certainly probably the bulk of it. Yeah, yeah.
Hey, Busk and Busker.
How's it going? I came in when I heard the gender essentialism.
Oh, okay. What part was that?
What B. More Busker was saying, like I don't think that I think that what you're talking about is a culturally bound phenomenon. I think that you're talking about a lack of self discipline, self restraint, and that's something that can be managed and is managed in various parts of the world. And the fact is not managed here in our society isn't anything about women's ontology. It's just something about poor.
Their biology though. Isn't that a real thing? Auntie even said it was true. That their moods change once a month.
Yeah,
They can
obviously, there's hormonal changes,
that.
but what you're talking about,
No
like
doubt.
what you're talking about, like the fact that because so your perspective, Busker, right, is that like women are basically like to some extent incapable of controlling themselves. Is that your position?
During that time of the month, that's like a lot of them are not capable. My sister
Well,
is
is
very.
that true
Hold on,
across
hold on,
culture?
hold on. My sister is very capable of controlling it, but I notice it sometimes. Like she starts acting really emotional, and like that's only like once in a while. And I see my sister a whole lot. All right. And I've known other women. I've lived with two women, girls. We were fucking teenagers. So like fucking, and 3 years relationship with a woman, and it's just if we're gonna call it a woman, teenager, and they act like cunts, dude. And like they can be the nicest person if they're not on the rag. So yeah, that's a.
So, do well. To what extent do you think it is that women in our society are not trained to have ashek?
Well, I mean, I'm sure women politicians, when they act all crazy, they're on the fucking rag.
Yeah, well, but I mean, but again, that's a cultural thing, right? Like that's specific to American society.
You're in other
I
cultures
have no
like
clue. I have no clue about any other culture but our culture in America.
it seems like the natural state to have the hormonal fluctuations that Auntie's talking about, and then some cultures like manage them so that they don't really show up as a phenomenon. But that
Yeah,
we,
I mean, I'm not denying that hormonal changes occur. I'm saying that like a society, so most societies have not coded self-discipline as being unnecessarily a male trait the way our society does, right? Like our society since
oh,
the Victorian age has said that like self-discipline is something that men should learn, but women shouldn't.
I,
But in traditional cultures, women learn to have a shek as every bit as much as men do.
what's a shek?
That's the traditional Tuareg term. So this is a nomadic people, the Sahara Desert, and they're actually a matriarchal and matrilineal society, and yet they're in their culture they talk about this idea that's similar to sort of reserve, restraint, self-discipline, dignity, is loosely translated as ashek, and in their culture is not gender coded, right?
And
Like all
so everyone's taught this. This is
everyone's taught this, yeah.
based.
Yeah, well, I mean that's how so many non-Western cultures operate.
I'm sure like in other cultures, like where women are supposed to be very submissive, that when they're on the rag, they probably feel shit that they want to let out, but they know if they let it out, they're dead.
Well,
Yeah, but
but
I don't know if that's
this is a
healthy either.
matriarchal society I'm talking about. This is a society where, women have a higher status than they do in our society, but because they have such a high status, they're, they are trained, they are expected to show this level of dignity and restraint.
I really wish we
Yeah,
had a few women, or at least a woman on here to help us talk about this. If we're going to talk about periods, it would really help.
that would help definitely.
In fact, maybe I can recruit from social media. Let me see what I could do.
But I think I'm gonna hop off, brother.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, man, I'm sorry. I gotta do something real quick.
Oh yeah, no, that's fine. Take care.
All right, see you guys later.
All right.
All right, see you around.
So, well, you're welcome to stay or not.
Well, how's it going on your end?
Pretty good. Just doing the stream, trying to keep everything down. How about you? Are you still you get summers off?
I will. I see the school I'm at is kind of a weird schedule where we get longer breaks during the year and shorter breaks during summer. So I'm only getting 4 weeks in the summer. It doesn't start till June.
Oh my god, only 4 weeks.
Yeah, but I make up for it because I get like decently long breaks then in for Christmas, and spring
Oh,
break is like 3 weeks long.
oh wow. Okay.
But that'll be interesting.
I wish we had you here today. We were talking a lot about education.
Oh, really?
Yeah, because
What kind of class?
when I was in school and when I was teaching both, the amount of kids that needed extra attention or that were discipline problems were very minor. Very, like you might have one or two here or there. They weren't a major problem. And now I'm told that that's like the norm is kids that can't behave in the classroom enough to learn. And what was the other thing I said? The kids that needs one-on-one attention, and they're like, there's not enough teachers to give kids one-on-one attention. And like I never needed a bunch of kids that I never had a bunch of kids that needed one-on-one attention. Why do they all of a sudden
Oh
need all
yeah,
this?
it's
So what is your experience with the current?
my experience with education is that the more I experience it, the more I want out of it. To be honest, because
Yeah, that
it's
was mine
and so
too.
does everybody else. Like this is why they talk
Yeah,
about there being a teacher shortage because it's just
that's what we talked about.
chaos nowadays. But but the thing is that like I don't know, it's weird because on the other hand though, like if you don't have people out there trying to do what I'm doing, then you'll just end up with this generation ending up even worse. And the truth is that like even the worst kids I had, I said this on Discord a couple days ago, like the worst kids I have, the most immature kids that I have to deal with are still more mature than Made by Jim Bob. So
Oh, that's the new standard.
I know, right?
I mean, that's not a bad one. I would probably be thrilled if most kids came out of public school not as at least as good as Jim Bob, if not better.
Yeah. It's see, I don't know if that's a positive like I don't know if by saying that I'm saying like wow, these kids are actually mature, or if I'm saying wow, Jim Bob is like so pathetic that he gets, owned by the fucking skibbity toilet kid over there.
Skivity toilet.
That's a young people thing.
Oh, okay. Oh, yeah, I think I know that meme actually. Yeah, apparently he got schooled by Hank the other day.
Oh, who did?
Jim
Jim
Bob.
Bob?
Yeah.
Really? Wait, is Jim Bob allowing people on his show again?
Yeah. Well, he had
So
Hank on like a few months ago, but like just a few days ago, Hank was back on.
interesting because he claimed around the time I was trying to call into his show that he wasn't doing call-ins anymore. I suspect because he was terrified of me.
Oh well, he certainly did them a few days ago.
Oh, all right. Well, I gotta create a nice new pseudonym so I can make it
Oh,
onto his show because he's
get a
not
voice
gonna have me under
changer.
my current name. He already knows. He spent 2 hours sitting there shrieking and throwing a hissy fit at me. So I doubt he's man enough to take J.R. Busk or Traditional Culture Preservation Society. But if I make up a new name, maybe I'll get VIP privileges.
Are you gonna be able to change your voice because he's gonna recognize you right away?
I don't know. I might do an accent if I have to.
Okay. Yeah, give it a try.
Fair enough. Or I might, if he's on the Crucible, the nice thing is with the Crucible is that like they'll let pretty much anybody call in. So I
Oh
might
yeah.
corral him and force him into the position where he has to deal with me. Because, like, dude, like, I'm a nobody on YouTube. Like, if you're this scared of me, then that's on you, and you need to be put in your place. Because, like, what the fuck is there to be afraid of about me? I'm a nobody. I got barely 100 subscribers. So what the hell is he afraid of?
I don't know. It'd be interested to know.
No, I guess hopefully we'll find out.
Yeah, and if you make it on, definitely let. Are you on Discord, or how do we contact you?
Oh, actually,
Definitely let
I
it-
created a Discord server recently.
Oh, okay.
I'm gonna put the link in the private chat because I'm not sure I want the average Joe to know about it. But
Okay. Yeah, definitely let me know if you end up going on one day.
oh yeah, I will. Now that I find out that I guess I don't know. Maybe he figured that like I'm gone, so he can reopen. Um,
You
the
think he did it because of you?
Well, all I
Or
know is
maybe he was
2 hours
lying.
getting triggered over me. Like, I mean, I'm not even joking. Like, he did a video where like the whole video practically was him throwing a temper tantrum over my existence, even though I'm a nobody on YouTube. So I think he's pretty triggered.
Would who? Did him? Joe Busk is scaring you? To put-
Well, I mean, I'll tell you what. I'm gentle as a lamb, though they take me for a ram, as the old communist folk song says. But I can be very cordial to people until they cross me and act like intellectually dishonest fucks like Jim Cock does.
Yeah, I guess I'm kind of the same way.
Well, you should try calling on his show. I'm sure he'd have.
He wanted me to go on one day. He was talking philosophy, and we were arguing from the comments. But I didn't. It was like 10 minutes before this stream, and I didn't have time to go on. But I said I do. I said I owe you a chat, but then I don't really hang out there much anymore.
Yeah.
But yeah, I would go on if he wanted me.
Well, try to see if you could make something of that emotional, irrational mind of his. Try and pick his little soy brain.
I'm sure he's gonna fight and fuss. Because I was trying to. He has this. He understands naturalism very differently than I do. So I was giving him the Wikipedia version of it, and he's like, "I don't care about sources.
Yeah,
Just
that's true.
come up and attack my argument." And I'm like, "Well, part of my attack is trying to explain what everybody but you understands naturalism to be, because he was confusing it with physicalism." And the article made the distinction. It showed the differences between the two.
No, what you need
But
to understand
he
is that
didn't want to.
Jim
He
Bob is
didn't
not
want
an
to take
analytic
the
thinker.
article.
Jim
Huh?
Bob's not an analytic thinker. He's not. You're not
No,
going
he's like Andrew. He's a rhetorician.
Well, I mean, I wouldn't even say that because, like, at least Andrew, like, he's to be honest, he's an emotional crybaby. Like, that's all he is. Like, the 2 hours that he spent shrieking at me while refusing to debate me was exactly that. It was like everything that you could possibly like. All he could do is just sit there and get triggered, while his audience thought that him being triggered was him owning me. Like it was pathetic, and that's all he's got because he is essentially he's a guy that clearly got bullied at school because of his height and because of his weird little Mickey Mouse voice. He is a person that has probably decades of emotional trauma behind him. He's never been a success at life, and the years have gotten to him, and that affects his mood, and it makes him a bitter, angry, just childish old man who can't deal with criticism, and so he finds refuge in this supposed fortress of precept crap that he uses to try and deflect away from having a real argument with anybody.
Wow. Well, you got way more out of him than I did.
Yeah, I suppose so. But I've had I've been trying to get him to engage for months now, and I've never gotten anything but like I said, like not even no joke. Like I've never, in all my years as a teacher, I've never found somebody a middle school student, a Gen Alpha kid, who I've had as hard a time with having an intellectual, mature conversation as made by Jim Bob.
Well, that does happen with some people, especially people
So,
like Andrew.
see, the thing
They're
is, like
not there
Andrew,
for
like
dialogue.
I
They're
don't
not
have an
there.
issue with Andrew though. Like, I mean, Andrew, like I actually have I've had mature conversations with him when I've talked to him. Like we've been able, and the same thing with Jay Dyer, right? Because I went on Jay Dyer's show, and he has a difficult time with a lot of people, but we got along just fine. Like it is specifically Jim Bob. Our personalities just clash because I'm interested in facts and he's interested in his feelings.
Yeah, but if it's personality, it's even deeper than that. So there's no telling. It's just a mystery. But y'all don't like each other.
Well, it didn't have to be that way. If he had let me on his show instead of sitting there and getting triggered and throwing a hissy fit for 2 hours, we might have been. I mean, to be fair, if he let me on his show, he would have gotten owned, and then he would probably throw an even bigger hissy fit. He would have gone into damage control. But
That's the decision he made. So
yeah, I suppose so. It's probably looking out for his own best interest, really.
do you still try to go on, or have you?
No, I haven't been. I see. I thought he stopped doing the call-ins because of the time I did go on, or I did try to go on. I thought that he had retired from doing that. I didn't realize that
Talk to Hank. That's probably your best person to get the latest on because he was just on.
Interesting. Yeah, I'll have to do that. I know he was on because the other show I've been trying to get on is PF Young, but the issue with that is that last weekend I thought he always did a morning show, but but last
he
weekend he didn't. It
yeah,
doesn't
I
look
know
like this
he
weekend
doesn't,
is
and it
doing
doesn't
that.
look like he has one set up this weekend either. Sometimes when he's traveling, he's not able to do one. But you're right. He usually does the morning show every Saturday, and you should be as long as you're willing to cam up, you should be able to call in. And you
Yeah,
can
because
type in the private chat if you want when you're backstage that you let him know you're from me or that you're one of ours. You know me, so he can make sure you get on.
okay. Yeah, no, I definitely because that would be an interesting conversation to have. I'm just interested in picking his
And he
brain.
likes when you disagree with him. So show ups with something very specific that he said that you disagree with, so y'all can fight over those 1 or 2 points.
See, but that's the thing. Like, that's the sort of opponent that I like. Like, I like somebody who's able to, handle criticism, right? Like, I like somebody who's thick-skinned. Like, PF Young seems like he's somebody who's thick-skinned. And to be like, so even somebody like Alex from Playing with Fire seems like somebody who's decently thick-skinned. Like, I can handle people that are thick-skinned and are able to even like enjoy and get the most out of disagreements, because it's through disagreements and through hashing out our differences that we learn from each other. And the thing I can't stand is people that are like talk tough, like they talk like these big debate bros, but then they're little scaredy cats when you actually, handle them.
Well, yeah, you're right to stay away from them. Who? Oh, the auroras. Cool. Yeah. Are you getting the auroras tonight? They're having a solar storm or something.
Oh, where's this at?
All over the U.S.
All over the U.S.
Yeah, like the zone. It goes all the way to Alabama, the zone that you're able to see northern lights, because the lights are going to increase too as a result of this magnetic blast that we're in the middle of. So there's going to be more northern lights, and you're going to be able to see them further. So
It's weird because I haven't heard about this in my area. I'm thinking that like my particular sliver of America is like the only part that's not affected.
I'm trying to pull up the map. Because I just pulled up the news when I started the stream, and that's the first time I saw it. And I read their website. There's a website called spaceweather.gov They have their own space weather department, and it had all this information about we're at the highest, the G5 rating of severity, and all the things that could happen as a result. And they said it could persist throughout the weekend.
Okay. I'm looking at the map right now, and it would appear that the area I'm in is outside the range. So that's probably why I haven't heard about it. It looks
They
like it
said
only goes.
Alabama, but it doesn't. I don't see it going down to Alabama. Wow,
Yeah, it
that
looks
is
like
a
the furthest south it goes is like northern Kentucky. So I don't think
Frank and all the Canadians are going to really get it. I'm in the yellow band. I might go try to see it. What time do they start? If I do see them, I'll try to stream them. Oh, wow. The Space Weather Prediction Center. The last time they issued one of these severe storm watches was January of 2005. That's how rare this is. The best aurora is usually within an hour or two of midnight, looking to the north from a location that is further away from city lights. Oh, I'm right in the middle of the city. The best viewing in the Pacific Northwest. Okay, I'd have to go out to try to see them. Are you there, or are you taking a break?
Oh, I'm still here. I was looking at the maps.
Oh, okay.
Looks like it looks like it's basically just the northern half of the U.S. and I'm in the southern half of the U.S. So
yeah.
doesn't apply in my instance.
Wow. Oh. Wow, I wonder. Well, the Panelverse might get kind of crazy tonight. Crazier. I remember when, what is it, Uranus went to Pluto or something, and all the drama that happened then. Maybe something will happen tonight.
Oh, well, is it a full moon?
Let's see. Waxing crescent. No, it's a little tiny sliver.
I see. 'Cause I know there's the old superstition about the full moon, right? It makes everybody go crazy.
Yeah, and the werewolf. They supposedly they have statistics like ER numbers go up and arrest records go up during full moons, but I don't know how credible any of it is. Like I don't know what the correlation is, if any.
Well, the moon has an effect on like the ocean, so it's not implausible that could have an effect on living things as well.
Yeah, especially if the numbers are consistent. Let me see if they are. Oh, they actually have done studies on this. Scientific studies. Some of them even government studies. Wow. Really specific studies.
What's the general finding?
That that would this one is specifically on hospital visits. That there's some diseases, like some specific diseases, that seem to show more visits during certain lunar phases than others. So not all conditions, but certain conditions. But that it would need way more research to conclude anything definitive from that, and to rule out other factors.
I wonder if I'm guessing it's more psychological than physical, right? Like it's
Yeah, it
more.
might. I don't know. It could be an urban legend or a wives' tale. Are they the same thing? I don't know.
Yeah, I guess because there's obviously for centuries there's been stories about astrological influences and things like that, and that could just be a variation.
Oh man, she's going in the hot tub. Have fun. I'm jealous. Well, let me see what iFi is streaming. Oh, everybody! That's so funny. Flow is streaming, and then half the channels on YouTube are restreaming them, including iFi. And then I guess verbal combat will begin. Oh, in an hour. He pushed it back.
Oh, is this like a debate?
Yeah, it's blood sports. And there's like somebody wins at the end of the night. They vote on the winner, whoever's left, and you can eliminate people. Like put two people up against each other, and the loser gets taken off the panel.
Whose channel is this?
That is Speakeasy. I'll put the link.
Oh, Speakeasy.
Yeah, you should go in there.
I was on something that he hosted like almost a year ago with that clown Ben Thorpe.
Oh yeah, he was on the show. Last time I was on Speakeasy, me and Andrew Wilson ended up going head to head, and of course everybody voted Andrew the winner. So I got kicked off, but as I was leaving, I saw Ben Thorpe come on, and I'm like, "Oh, thank God, Andrew just did me a favor," because I would have left anyway if I had known he was coming on.
Yeah. Well, thankfully he's getting sodomized in prison right now. So.
Oh, he got arrested? I thought he was out.
Yeah.
Wasn't he on the stream the other day?
He was? Because last I heard, I haven't paid attention to the drama, but last I heard he was in jail.
Flo did a whole update on him.
Really?
Or maybe he was restreaming something he was on earlier. I don't know. That is one person I definitely do not keep up with.
Yeah, he was. Well, I found he was about on the same tier as Made by Jim Bob when I had to deal with him. That'll be interesting. I would be interested in, if possible, going back on Speakeasy's show though, because the thing is, the audience was being like the cucks that I imagined they would be. But
yeah, it's all a popular. They vote for whoever they like the bit. None of it's based on who actually won the argument.
Yeah, that's the sense I get. I got the sense that
iFi won one night.
Well, I wonder because it seems like his audience, at least the night that I was there, his audience were all like just like Pinkerite loser people that were stuck in the 90s. Like they hadn't figured out that the world had evolved beyond like 90s neoliberalism. I was kind of stunned by how out of touch they were.
I might be one of them.
I don't know. It was interesting though. It was like I wonder if that debate is still up. It was still up a few months ago. It was like all these people that were in the Ben Thorpe sphere, and I mean, they all just folded. They were pathetic. I thought Thorpe was the most pathetic of them.
I didn't even know he had his own sphere.
Well, it's mostly a drama sphere. It's mostly like a lolcow.
Well, that explains what he's doing on Flows, at least as a story.
I know, right?
Well, yeah, you should consider going on tonight. I could even
Is
stream
it an
some.
open panel?
Yeah, you just show up.
Oh, this is interesting. Okay, I'm intrigued now. Is there like a set topic, or is it just?
No, he puts different topics. There's a whole bunch of topics. So he'll like start with some random topic, and everybody will weigh in and debate. And then the
Oh,
audience can pay to have two people do a face-off, and then the loser gets eliminated. And then after it goes on for a while, he'll change it to another topic. But sometimes they spin off into random topics that have nothing to do with the main topic. So, and then sometimes he'll do roast, where like I think the audience can pay to have a roast where people just roast each other. They don't even do a topic. They just insult each other for fun.
I see. I mean, I can stick around for an actual topic. Like, I'm not interested in just.
No, he does. Most of it's topic based. It's almost all topics. And then I think the audience can pay to change the topic or introduce their own topic or something like that. So the
What's the
audience has the
usual?
ability to influence a lot of it.
What's the usual? Like, what's the general audience's? What angle are they coming from?
It's mixed. Like Andrew won that day. They were really receptive to him, but then that transsexual lady won too one day that should not have. So they liked her too. So it's hard to say.
I mean, I have a suspicion based on my past experience with the extremely online that my worldview wouldn't last very long. I seem to scare people a lot with my,
That'd be a
anti-modernity
good way to put it to the
stuff.
test.
What's up?
This would be a good way to put it to the test.
Yeah, I suppose so.
And all the usual panel people hang out there. Flo's on there sometimes. Rant.
Ooh.
I
So
find
like
Emperor Dave.
all the people I've pissed off. That's going to be fascinating.
Yeah. Moderated by Speakeasy.
I will say Speakeasy was a decent moderator. I will give him that. The one time I was on a debate that he moderated, he was not like perfect, but I would say he was above average as a moderator. So,
And keep in mind, it's mostly blood sport. So the point is to really go hard at people and fuck them up, not really to have a rational, complex debate.
well, I certainly am capable of going hard at people.
You know what? Watch some of it, and then see who's on. And if you get inspired, jump in.
Yeah, it's got to be a topic I care about too. Like I don't give a fuck about like just like specific stuff, like societally specific stuff. I want to make like broader points about.
Well,
and
he does a range. Oh, is it starting? Let's see. He does a range of topics, and so I think you could bring a perspective that he doesn't often get on that panel, like the anthropological and cultural perspective on each of those topics. You could run it through your particular lens and bring something new to it.
Yeah, hopefully, because he has now been introduced to something that I want to introduce everybody to. Because really, the whole point of my channel is to like forcibly shift people's Overton windows, right? To make it such where, like Jim Bob now, Jim Bob can sit and be triggered and whine as much as he wants about everything I believe in, but he's now forced to deal with my beliefs as a possible alternative, right? Like that's what I'm interested in doing. Like right now,
all anyone's obligated to do is consider, like they're not even that, but like you say your belief, they take it in, they weigh it, they consider it, they think about it. That's all anybody you can reasonably expect anybody to do with your beliefs. They don't owe them assent or affirmation or anything.
Yeah, what I'd say is that what always happens though, so like whenever a new belief is introduced, though, it is now a part of, everybody now sees if they're forced to see things, from a different lens or forced to see things that they've
Well,
never.
no, but I don't know that they're forced, because like if a crazy person on the street is telling me about Scientology and the thetans in my brain, that's not going to affect, just because they've told me their belief, it's not changing the way I see the world at all, because I'm
But
not
it's subtly, it doesn't at a more profound level, but does subtly, right? Because now all of a sudden, if you never heard anything like that before, now all of a sudden your mind has been broadened to the point where at least you've heard something like that.
maybe, if you want to call that a broadening of the mind. I guess technically,
Now
I
you're
know
seeing,
something that I didn't know before that's out there about the world.
and that's the point that I'm, because think of it
But
this.
there's a lot, like people try to put all kind of stuff out there, like lizard people.
Well, think of it this way though, like if there's 100,000 people that have never thought about things from this cross-cultural perspective, and then all of them are put in a situation where they have this cross-cultural perspective in their brains. Some of them can reject it, some of them can try to wish it away, but a lot of them won't successfully ultimately be able to do that. So you will end up at the very least opening more minds to this idea, just because of the fact that a lot of people, when they think about this, they're going to be like, hey, hang on. And it might take a while, but now that they're introduced to this perspective, they're starting to maybe eventually think like, wait a second, maybe there's something to this. Like I know with myself, when I was in high school, I bought into the myths and the lies that my culture told me. And when I first started studying anthropology, I was somewhat resistant to some of these, Boasian critiques. But it was slowly over time, I started thinking, I started, reading heavily, and I started realizing, wait a second, maybe there's something to all these alternative perspectives.
Okay, yeah, like I said, all you do is put it out there, and
I know,
people will
right?
do it.
That's the goal.
But you're a teacher. You know all this already. Your limits of how much you can expect someone to internalize what you're saying or presenting.
Yeah, I would say at the same time, interestingly though, like my experience in education actually, like I've been pleasantly surprised by how much, even a young mind is capable of. Like, I mean, I say this all the time, when I'm dealing in pedagogy, when I'm dealing with, you know, in education, even just talking to like other teachers, I'm always like, when I entered this profession, I did not realize that like I did not think it was feasible, when I first started teaching, that I could have like a college level seminar with high schoolers, with high school freshmen. But I've been able to do that before. I mean, like I think that
Because you didn't think that the students themselves would respond to it, or the school would not let you.
oh, no, I mean like I've done this before. Like this is something I've actually done. Like I've had discussions with high school freshmen or even younger, like seventh, eighth graders, that I thought was well above the average of what I was expecting.
I see. Yeah.
And I mean, honestly, I think that minds, even at a young age, are capable of quite a bit if they're
Yeah. I think
inspired.
so too.
If they're given that scaffolding, that support, they're capable of a great deal of understanding. From the mouths of babes, so they say. I don't think that you know I don't buy a lot of what's told in mainstream education about education, right? Like there's the old joke: those who can do, those who can't teach, and those who can't teach
Yeah.
teach education. Um, but the
Very good.
like these stories that are told about like, oh well, the young mind isn't capable of like, I think the young mind is capable of handling quite a bit, and I have 4 years in the United States and then 2 years in Asia of experience that indicates that I'm correct and that these other people are just wrong and they're not doing it right.
Yeah, we were talking about that today. Like the percent of teachers that actually have the skill set to teach successfully?
The problem is that, as I found in my career, especially because, I'm at my second school now in America. At my first school, basically most of the teachers and the administrators there were just completely incompetent, and they started targeting me because I was competent, because I was actually inspiring students in a way that they were not. And so it became I was the bad guy. That's very typical in American education nowadays, that they don't want, like, they're just a little elite club that are out there trying to gatekeep, and they don't want people out there that are actually thinking outside the box and actually getting things done.
What did they do? Did they discipline you in any way?
No, it was the weirdest thing because, like, basically they couldn't fire me because the principal at the school was on my side. But what they did was they conspired against my coworkers conspired against me to make my life utterly miserable, to the point where I ended up having to leave.
You still end up my experience, when people don't want you somewhere, they will find a way to get you out one way or the other. So I don't even try to fight it. I don't want to be somewhere where people are that determined to get rid of me.
See, the thing is, though, that, like, I handled it. I basically won, because what happened was that, like, I was incredibly popular with the students. And so, and a number of the students they created entire TikToks where they were saying, like, plotting against all the things they were going to do to my school if I left, get revenge on them. And so I left, and I didn't tell them I was ahead of time. So they unleashed absolute hell on the school after I left, and I got my revenge. It was beautiful.
Wow. What did they do to the school?
I didn't keep in touch, so I didn't know all the details, but I know that the guy that replaced me was driven out after like 1 year, and I was there for 2 years before my coworkers finally, basically were fucking burning crosses on my front lawn, figuratively, not literally. This guy didn't even last 1 year, so clearly they were doing something pretty brutal.
Wow. I wonder how many teachers have that kind of influence over their students where they can mobilize a mob of kids.
Well, the thing is that it's not that hard. Like, you just have to be the one that makes a difference. You just have to be the one that cares and that's actually interested in their growth and their development. Because, most teachers are not like that. Most teachers are just lazy slobs that are there just to do a job, just to get paid the pennies that you get if you're a teacher.
Man, you must have had some really bad teachers.
But the thing is, I don't think it was atypical, right? Like, the average American public school is just like full of people who hate their lives.
Mine were not my schools. They were just average people. There wasn't anything negative about them. They just didn't have what I needed to learn. But they were just ordinary. Most of them were like people from the community, parents, friends, like coworkers, stuff like that, from people from the community.
Yeah, a lot of times, because this was a small town, right? Like, that I was at, so it would have been, there was this sense to some degree of community, but at the same time, it was like, I never got the sense, and I was told this so many times by so many of my students. Like, I never got the sense that, like, most of the teachers there really cared on a deep level about their pupils, about their kids, right? Like,
all they have to care about is your grades. Did they come to you if your grades were dropping and say, "Hey, you're falling behind. I'm a little worried about you"?
Oh, did the other teachers do that in my school?
Yeah.
At the last school I was at?
Like, that's the only thing. A teacher doesn't have to care about your family life and your spiritual development and your psychological and social, emotional, anything. They just have to care. Are you learning the math? Are you having difficulty with it? Are you falling behind in your spelling? That's the only thing they have to care about is their education.
But you know what though, the teachers,
They're not parents away from home.
you know, the funny thing is that the teachers that do go a step beyond and try to do what's best for the students holistically are the ones that get TikToks made about all the revenge they're going to make on the school if the teacher ever leaves.
Yeah, I don't want that either. In society, I don't want mobs of angry kids going after people when they lose their teacher.
Um, you know, but sometimes,
But I'm not there.
sometimes,
My role as a teacher was not there to be holistic. I was there to do a very specific thing. It was cognitive, educational, and I did it very well. And they had other people to do that other stuff. They had counselors and extracurricular stuff and groups, and I was only one part of the holistic thing.
well, I
Mission.
suppose my approach to pedagogy has always been a little bit more because the truth is that I know that there's always going to be a number of kids out there that if I don't step in, nobody will. Because you know, a lot of kids out there have lousy parents, they have lousy adults in their lives, they have lousy other teachers that don't give a shit. So,
What kind of stuff do you step in on?
I mean, I've done, especially at my last school, I did like because right now I'm at a school that's more sort of high end, I guess you could say, like more like upper middle class. But my last school that was in the mountains of Appalachia, I'd be sitting there like on Zoom calls for hours, counseling kids that are suicidal. I'd be like sitting like, I mean, I was as much a therapist as I was a teacher at my last school.
That let me sit on that, because if a kid's in that state, I wouldn't want them to, and you're the one person that can reach them. I wouldn't want them to not have that. But at the same time, that was definitely not my role as a teacher. I would have walked off the job if they said, "Oh, and by the way, we also need you to Zoom with the kids and keep them from committing suicide."
Oh, that's the thing. They didn't. That wasn't part of the job description. That was the reason why they all hated me. My coworkers hated me because I was, you know, going above and beyond, and it made them look like idiots. It made them look like they were lazy and they weren't adequate.
I'm I'm gonna have to sit with that one for a little while. Because I do both. I do already do that kind of mental health work, and I have taught in the classroom, and I'm trying to imagine myself in both roles at the same time. Um, so until I get something definite, I really don't know what to say about it. I'm glad that somebody's there to help the kid. At the same time, I would find it very difficult and maybe even a boundary issue to try to play both roles. And I'm about to revise everything I say, everything I just said, by saying that I went to a very specialized residential school where we were treated holistically. We did get the one-on-one attention. We did have people around to talk about all that other kind of stuff unrelated to academics. But it was an environment created for a specific type of student, and it had already all of that built in from the start. I don't know if the average student has those needs. Like if if that's what we were talking about today. Because back in my day, the amount of kids that needed that kind of stuff was very low. And I'm told that nowadays the amount of kids that need it is almost the norm. And that seems like quite a shift to me, from a focus on math, reading, science to all this other stuff. One-on-one
Yeah, I'm sure
attention,
there's a generational change as
suicide,
well.
mental health.
Like even in my day, even in my day, I don't. It doesn't seem like, obviously, I was looking from the students' end, but it doesn't seem like in the 2000s when I was in school, there was as much of an issue with like misbehavior and inability to focus from.
So it's gotten worse. That's when I was teaching in the 2000s. So since the time you were in school, you say that it has gotten worse. That's more of an
Oh yeah,
issue.
it's gotten way harder. Like, and that's not just me speaking. Like, that's like everybody that's in education say
Are
it's
the
gotten a
kids
lot
just
worse.
showing up different from the start? Like, is there something about the kids when they?
Yeah, I would say they're a lot more. They have a lot more issues with like focusing, right? Like they have a lot more issues just with like being in that classroom setting.
Because of like computer screens, attention span, like
Oh
modern
yeah,
day
that's a huge part of it. I think. I mean, I
video
think some of it
games.
is genetics. I think a lot of it is the way that they're raised and just the maladaptive trends of modern society.
Either that or our attention spans are changing and our education needs to change to catch up with it. Although I don't know how there's a substitute for things like reading and math and basic science and stuff. I don't know how you adapt that to a shorter attention span. I mean, some things just take an investment to learn.
Yeah, certainly. Well, I know some schools are now basically capitulating to all of it. Like, some schools are now teaching kids, thankfully this isn't the case with schools that I've been at, but some of them are now saying basically we need to teach the kids how to write papers using Chat GPT.
Yeah, I'm kind of. I can see a case for that because, especially if you use it to generate a rough draft. Like I don't have a problem with it help because that's one of my weaknesses as a writer too is organizing my thoughts. So if ChatGPT can, but I also see your point. In they should the more they can learn to do that on their own, the better they're going to be at using ChatGPT to do it. If they can organize their own thoughts, they're going to know how to communicate what they want GPT to do a lot better than if they just put a bunch of crap in the GPT and said, organize this for me.
Yeah, well, I mean, and that's the issue because the problem is that it's very easy. I find it's very easy to figure out if something's AI or not. Like AI has a specific there's a specific like writing style, right? That like where they very much hedge the answers, where everything's like highly qualified. You can instantly tell if it's AI, and I don't think it's a good writing style. Like I think it's just poorly written, and
I
it
was
does.
watching a mystery on TV last night, and the whole mystery was revolved around this writer that wrote a bunch of stuff, and one of the papers didn't look like the rest, and the difference was it was written by AI, and they noticed it, and they're like, "There's something different about this paper." Oh, yeah, it was written by AI, and that was the clue to the mystery, was that difference in style.
And it's interesting because some people say that like, oh, like they have a hard time. I think there was something that a third of members of peer review boards reviewing papers for publication in scholarly journals couldn't figure out that like a random paper that was inserted and there was written by AI. But I was like
Oh, you talking about the grievance hoax? Helen Pluckrose and James
oh
Lindsay?
yeah, I remember
Peter
that
Busker?
from that was before ChatGPT though. That was like back in the 2010s. But I'm saying like more recently there was a case where they did a test where they had ChatGPT write a paper or write a scholarly article, and they submitted it to peer review, and about a third of the peer reviewers couldn't figure out it was AI'd out because
Oh my God.
shocked me because I was like,
As if our
I
peer
can
review
instantly
system
tell.
wasn't broken enough. Fuck. Maybe this. So I'm just ready for the universities to collapse completely and start over. That's the one system I'm ready to dismantle. It's so rotten from the inside now. Just let it fall apart.
Yeah,
I think we
certainly.
can build back better.
Yeah, certainly. That's. I mean, I never went on. I wanted to become a professor in anthropology. I wanted to get my PhD, but I never went on because I got tired of it. I got, I basically got rejected from one of the top anthropology programs in the country, despite being qualified, because I didn't fit all the woke boxes or something.
Oh, you maybe could have done a 23andMe.
I don't know what I could have even found though, because
gotten a trans boyfriend.
Yeah, I could have done that. Maybe I should have done the hit prefer not to say for my gender on the application.
Well, thankfully the Supremes came in and took care of all that. Yeah, Daniel, I think I remember those days too. We had to go to the library and use the card catalog and everything. I think those days, I've seen videos of kids try to use a rotary phone. They can't figure that out. So I think we're going to have to, which I've said that before about technology and AI and stuff like that. I think it's going to, the things that can be automated, the things that the machine can do really well, humans are going to learn to give over to the machine. And we're going to discover what we as humans excel at. And that's going to be our niche and where our strengths are. And I think this AI technology is going to help us sort out what that is. And it may turn out that things like citations and plagiarism and research and footnoting is something that a machine can do better. Although footnoting, there's kind of an art to that too. You have to be very intentional and think about your footnotes. Right. I think the point was that when the people reviewing human papers couldn't tell which papers were not human. I don't think it was a computer doing the reviewing. I think it was humans reviewing papers, and some of them were AI written, and some of them were written by actual peers, and they couldn't tell which ones were.
Oh yeah, the original the study I was talking about, that was the issue, that like somebody did a ChatGPT written article for publication in a peer-reviewed journal. And about a third of the peer reviewers that were looking at the article thought it was written by a human when it actually was not.
So
now, to be fair, the other 2/3 recognized it was AI, but a third did not.
Yeah. What's the rate of for like human papers?
You mean what's the rate of like acceptance? I actually am not sure. I think it varies based on what the field is.
Oh. But yeah, I mean, ultimately, the journal itself is going to have to take accountability for that. If these AI papers start showing up in these professional journals and academic journals, then their credibility is going to be in jeopardy.
And that is an issue, right? Because, like, I mean, I've seen this already, even with like sometimes sometimes I'll look something up on Google, right? And I'll get redirected to, I don't know, like a Quora page where they're asking a question, and like half the responses are clearly AI. Like, with this very distinctive, because like I said, I mean, I think there's a very, very distinctive writing style that AI.
Well, there certainly is with the art.
Oh yeah, well that's the other thing, because like, I mean, AI art, like, I can't believe there's anybody out there that's fooled by AI art, because it's like obvious that it's fake, right?
Yeah, but it's obvious that most art is fake unless it's a photograph.
No, but I mean, like, because
you mean not human generated?
What they'll do is they'll like.
I don't know if people are fooled in the sense they think it's human generated. I think they just find it cool anyway. It's aesthetically pleasing, regardless.
No, I see some people out there that, like, because some of it can be subtle enough that if you're not looking closely, it can look not necessarily real, because they haven't figured out how to imitate, like, photographic level human.
Yeah,
but like,
you can assume it's coming.
Yeah, but like where we're at right now, there's art that's, I guess, sophisticated enough that if you're not looking at it that closely, you might think it might be human generated. Like once you look at it closely and you realize, oh wait, that guy's got 8 toes or something. Like
Yeah.
then you can start figuring out, okay, maybe this probably isn't legit, but
Yeah, that's something we're gonna have to. I'm sure we'll figure it out. There's enough geeks out there; they'll figure out some technology that'll help us identify AI from real. We're gonna have to have something like that for society to function.
in the meantime, it's quite a difficult world to navigate this transitional stage into the age of Aquarius, if you will.
Is it more or less difficult than any other time in history or any other transitional time? If this is even transitions, because we don't know something's a transition until we get to the other thing it's transitioning to, and then we look back and say, oh, that was a transition to this.
I would say this is a pretty clearly a highly transitional time, but there have been others, especially in more recent history, like the Industrial Revolution was obviously.
I'd say the 60s too seemed.
The 60s were culturally transitional. I would say that they were probably as much of a transition as now. Technologically, I don't think the tech was advanced.
So when you say transitional, you're talking about technology, like AI and stuff.
Well, I'm talking about like in a number of different dimensions, right? Like there's multiple different revolutionary periods. Like the 60s was a cultural revolution, but I'm not sure if I would say it was like a scientific or a technological revolution. But right now, I think we've got multiple revolutions happening.
Yeah, but are revolutions always happening? Like, because the actual point of revolution, where you could show that one thing became another, is, I think that's more rare than like trends or cycles that kind of are always potentially there. Like Marxism has been trying to have the revolution for centuries now, huh? When does it become an actual revolution? When does something become an actual revolution? It has to.
There's been multiple Marxist revolutions in history that have been, I think, very real.
But the final revolution, like where we transcend capitalism and live in communist utopia.
I suppose that one is likely not going to ever actually happen. I don't think that we're ever going to get it
either. Well, I'm not a communist.
My suspicion is that communism has probably hit its peak in the 20th century, and I think it'll become less and less important with time.
Because communism depends on convincing the workers that they're miserable, and nobody in the modern Western world, at least since World War II, has felt miserable like that. Miserable.
Well, hang on.
The most prosperous eras in human history.
No, I think that I'm pretty sure that most Amazon wage slaves are pretty damn miserable. Like, I mean,
I don't know. They haven't been able to convince them that they're miserable enough to do a revolution. Because I don't think most people experience the ability to work 8 hours a day and then come home and do whatever the hell you want to do. Misery.
Well, I think that's an incredibly romanticized and Whiggish portrayal of the life of the.
No, that's actual working people I know. That's how they live their life. They go to their job, they put in their hours, and then their life is theirs after that. Unless there's some high up corporate job with a lot of responsibility.
I don't.
But the wage slaves level that you're talking about, that's not misery. That's the best improvement over actual misery that we've seen in our human history.
Well, you think that right now we're living like the best, happiest, and least miserable lives we ever have in human history?
Well, I certainly am. I don't know why everyone else is as miserable as they seem to be. My hypothesis is social media and poor mental health self-care, like not knowing how to manage their exposure to information, the narratives that they generate from that.
Well, see, my hypothesis, my theory is that things actually are not getting better, and that what's happening is that
people, and actually there's a good deal of anthropological data to indicate this, that people do not have more free time now than they would have, in a traditional tribal type society. And that
that's never been the standard. We've been a Western society for long enough that we have our own thing we can reference our free time against.
Okay, so why can't
I don't expect anybody in the modern world
free
to have
time against
24 hours
the
of
original
free
affluent society? Why do we have to reference it against 19th century factory workers when we could reference it against
I'm
the
just talking.
Kalahari Bushmen?
No, I said I was talking about something as simple as the 8-hour workday. That's it. Like the modern standard, you work 8 hours and then you play or have family life. Whatever you do, whatever you want to do.
Well, that's a romanticized construct.
No, it's not. The 8-hour work week. That's like every job I've ever had in my life.
The specific
2020, did it change after
what you
COVID?
specifically said was that you have an 8-hour work day, and then after that you just play. And I think that
I said your life is yours. You do what you want. You play. You do family stuff. You pursue hobbies, interests, whatever.
Or else, perhaps, or the alternative.
But that's my point. My larger point was none of that is misery. It's not misery enough where communists are going to convince enough people that they're living in hell and need a revolution.
Well, I don't think communists convinced people, back in early 20th century Russia. It was not that the Russian Revolution was not communists convincing ordinary people that they were miserable, slaving away.
That's my understanding of the Marxist project. Was that
that was the Marxist project ideal. That wasn't the reality.
That's what I was talking about. That,
but that's not what happened. What happened was that basically they infiltrated.
I'm just talking about in the abstract. I'm not talking about it in practice at all. I'm just talking about it as a concept. The class consciousness that people have to be in enough misery for that to work. If they're not, it's not going to work. That's the only point I was trying to make.
But no, but my point is that the reason, so every society which had a Marxist revolution, in no case was it that ordinary people were so miserable that they pushed for the revolution. It was always that it was an idea that filtered down through the intellectual elite, and that the common people oftentimes weren't even that interested in it, right? Like you look at the Russian.
Well, again, I was talking about the original. Wasn't Marx himself the one that said when enough people achieve class consciousness, that's when. So what you're talking about is something else.
Yeah,
if they implemented it a different way, that's not the Marxism I'm talking about.
Yeah, well, but Marx was wrong. Like Marx.
Okay, well, I was
Lenin understood that Marxism was wrong. Like that's why Leninism was different from Marxism, because Lenin.
We're talking about two different things. I was only talking about Marx's concept of class consciousness.
But see, I'm talking about histories that, like Marx, the problem is that Marx's theories were all garbage. And what Lenin ended up figuring out, which is why the Russian Revolution was the first actually successful Marxist revolution, he figured out that the working class were not going to lead a revolution, that you basically needed the intellectual elite from the bourgeoisie class that were supposedly the bad guys to lead the revolution, because they were the only ones that would actually lead a revolution like that.
I don't know if Marx said they would lead. They had to achieve a certain consciousness.
And they never achieved that consciousness.
People that are not miserable, it's going to be really hard for them to achieve the consciousness of misery if they don't feel miserable.
But they've never, my point is that they've never actually gotten to that point. There's never been a successful example of a working class Marxist revolution. The Russian Revolution was largely an intellectual middle class revolution that the working class were at best, pawns in, and at times they resisted.
Well, I was talking about communism as Marx formulated it.
Well, communism as Marx formulated it was completely unworkable and didn't get anywhere.
Well, that's the communism. Is it crazy to talk about communism in relation to Marx? Am I just outdated?
Well, there's never been Marxist communism because it could never get anywhere.
I think you're missing my point. I said over and over, I'm talking about it in the abstract, as if I don't care about the particular times it was tried or not tried. I'm talking about Marx's idea that people need to reach a certain consciousness before revolution happens. That's all I'm talking about. I don't know why
people never reach that consciousness. My point is that people have never reached that consciousness, no matter what the conditions of the workers are. People have never reached that consciousness.
Okay, then I've said over and over, then we're talking about two different things. You're talking about something completely different than I am talking about. So I don't know why we're trying to keep having that conversation where we're not even talking about the same thing.
Well, I don't need to belabor this point if you'd rather talk about something else.
Anything. I just want to have a regular conversation about something.
Fair enough. I don't know. I'm interested in seeing we've got in a little bit this.
Oh yeah, verbal
Verbal
combat. I
combat's
think
gonna
it's
be on.
starting in I might even
Okay.
stream
It says 35 minutes. It's starting at 12:15 a.m.
Oh, he keeps changing the time. So it must be. Yeah, he just changed the time again. So it'll be like in half an hour.
That would be interesting. I wonder. Usually, when do they come up with topics?
As soon as the panel fills up, he does like a little introduction and people start filtering in, and then he puts up a topic.
Ooh, interesting. Yeah, I think I'll hang out there when it's ready because I'm interested in just pushing my ideas into the public consciousness.
Yeah, I think that would be a good place for you to try to do that because you'll probably meet some people that are sympathetic or understand and can expand on some of your ideas, and you're going to meet people that challenge and push back, and then you'll learn how to defend them better, etc. So I do think it's gonna it'll be good for you to give it a try.
Yeah.
Oh, the kiddos. Okay, maybe so. They're pushing his stream time up.
Oh, Speakeasy have kids?
I guess so. Yeah, I think he does. He's talked about him on stream.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of amazing to think about that. Like somebody could have a full-time job, raise a family, and spend Friday nights doing this.
It amazes me the amount of people that hang out on these panels that have actual lives and still somehow, like Hank. Do you know Hank works 50 hours a week?
Really?
How many times do you see him on a panel?
What does he do for a living?
Still working a more than full-time job.
What's his occupation?
I don't know, like logistics or something technical.
Huh, interesting. No, well, a lot of them.
Yes, I know, Daniel. We have been singing this song on a loop since I started this stream. What you're saying right here, I have said over and over and over. I can't tell you how many times on this thing. Human nature is the big old stumbling block of all of these ideologies, religious and secular. They all require some kind of purification of human nature as it currently exists.
Well, or some of the religious ideologies, I suppose, with the opposite, right? Like some of the total depravity 5-point Calvinist ideas are like, no, actually, like human nature is just complete garbage, and we need to just surrender to.
Well, that's still a form of purification, I guess. You're just leaving all of human nature behind, but it involves some kind of like perfecting of the human, or some kind of initiatory next step that you have to transition to.
Yeah, I suppose you do have. Obviously, Calvin had Geneva, right, which is sort of a prototype of the utopian dystopia that seems to have plagued us ever since then.
Well, that's subjective. Like whether someone experiences the world as dystopian or not is going to be up to that person. Some people are very black-pilled, I've noticed. Some people are not. I'm very optimistic.
I think in the case of Calvin's Geneva, the reason why I think we can safely say it was more dystopian than utopian is because it failed. Like it
Oh, you
felt,
mean their particular
yeah.
worldview? Yeah. Yeah. Well, isn't Christianity in general dystopian toward the world, the secular world, like the worldly things?
Yeah, I would say that like it's generally most forms of Christianity, maybe all forms of Christianity, understand that, you know, the afterlife is obviously the primary goal, that the world is
Yeah. Isn't this just like the bus stop, the bus station that we're all hanging out in?
yeah, pretty much. Just like I would say that it differs. The extent to which the world is viewed as like a dark, evil place is going to depend on one's theology. But there's always like there's never really a sense. I'm not gonna say never, but usually not a sense that like the world is something that we should make a major focus. The exception being like some of the very like liberal um, versions of Christianity will sometimes have this idea of the social gospel, right? Like, well, we're here to like try and make the world a better place, but that's a relatively recent phenomenon.
Oh. I'm just to me, the world is all there is. I don't know what else. Like, why would you focus on something less concrete than the world? And I feel the same way about the body. Like, we are our bodies. So I don't know what this mysterious gender or soul or something.
One
that
has
seems
to keep in
less
mind
real
that,
than the body.
like in a religious paradigm, and specifically, you know, the paradigm of the modern world religions that exist today, the goal is you know, the afterlife, right? The goal is what happens after we're in this world.
Yeah.
It's like we're not like the the central message, I guess you could say, of Christianity is that it's not that like Jesus came down in order to give us like a good life here and now, right? It's like it's Jesus came to give us a good life after we die, theoretically.
Yeah, and that's weird to someone that doesn't believe in an afterlife after you die. So I think that's part of my resistance to Christianity is this concept of a life after this one. That's pure speculation. Or wish.
I would say that like, but that's
fulfillment.
a modern way of reading it, right? Like at the time, you know, pretty much everybody in pretty much every traditional culture believed in some sort of survival after death. But the typical,
I guess that's just weird to me. I
well,
believed it too as a kid. I mean, it's weird to my own self. I believed it for a while too. It seems so normal and matter of fact. I couldn't imagine not believe, like not the idea that we didn't continue would have been crazy to me.
well, it's interesting because, you know, a lot of people wonder about that, like, because there's an old, I guess, like atheistic or rational, like non-theistic, non-religious argument that like, oh, well, the idea of the afterlife is just cope, right? It's just like people wishing that their existence could continue beyond death. But it's the counter I would say to that is that if you look at most pre-Christian, pre-Abrahamic religious traditions, though, their conception of the afterlife is not particularly appealing. It's not like, you know, like you look at like the earliest versions of the belief in life after death, it doesn't seem like it's something that most people would particularly look forward to. It doesn't seem like it's terrible necessarily, but it doesn't seem like something that people would prefer to not existing after death.
Yeah. So was Christianity the first paradise that gave people something to look forward to, or because the Jewish religion didn't even have anything? Like it was just the place where you go when you die. It wasn't anything special.
Yeah, I would say I guess the first religion to have a paradise-like ideal would have been Hinduism, because in Hinduism there's the idea that you kept on at least the first
Oh yeah,
like world religion
like
that we're familiar with. Yeah, it's the idea that you keep on reincarnating into higher states, and then eventually you sort of dissipate into the Brahman,
Transcendent bliss.
and that would have been historically, like we don't know, in prehistory, we don't know in pre-literate traditions, but of the written literate traditions, that would have been the earliest instantiation of a notion of superior post-mortem locations, I guess. And you would have had like Zoroastrianism, which would have been formulated around, I don't know, maybe like the 400s, 500s BC. They had a similar idea of like and I think they actually called it paradise. And a lot of people think that because the early Jewish idea was not like the early Jewish idea was just kind of like the shadowy underworld, but people think that the later idea that the Christians would have developed out of was influenced by the Persians, because the Jews lived in Persia for a while. So that's where a lot of people think that they got the idea of heaven, of paradise, from was Zoroastrianism.
I have heard that before, that we owe our concept of like ultimate good and evil as polarities to Zoroastrianism.
Now, the interesting counter I would say to that is that Zoroastrianism, while it does have some superficial similarities to what we think of as Abrahamic religions, there's also a lot of like really crucial differences.
Yeah. And it preceded the Abrahamic ones, right?
Yeah, it would have been other than Judaism, it would have been probably I guess it would have been newer than Judaism, because Zarathustra would have lived in, say, the 400s BC.
But Judaism evolved and changed over, because you had like the Second Temple and the Babylonian exile, where the priesthood, they came together and like codified some stuff. So the ancient biblical version, like Abraham and Jacob and all that, is different than. There were some changes to Judaism, or some historical
I know,
innovations or something. So like
there was
depending on which point in history you're talking about, the Jewish religion could be slightly different.
Well, I know there's a belief. I don't know if it's necessarily like the one that most scholars have or not, or it might be or it might not be. But there was a belief that, if you go back very far in the past, Judaism would have been polytheistic, right? Like they wouldn't have had just.
Yeah, Yahweh was one of many tribal gods. He was a war god, like a local war god of a tribe.
And you can even see this in the Old Testament that we have today, that like nobody believed that Yahweh was like the only God, right? They said Yahweh was our God, was the only one we're going to serve, but then they go out and they explicitly say, but Baal and all these other, Moloch and all these other deities we don't like are real, but they're just the other deities of other tribes, and we don't like those tribes, so we're not going to worship their gods.
Yeah, which makes sense to me. Why would you?
That's one. I guess that's the tribalistic impulse, because then you get the opposite end of the spectrum would be the Romans, who just assimilated any god that they could into their pantheon.
Yeah, but was that just as tribalistic, but in a different way? I would actually what happened with the Romans' problem was that they conquered Greece, and the Greek culture was way more advanced intellectually and artistically than the Romans. So they absorbed a culture not their own. Like they took over an existing culture and then repurposed it to theirs. Yeah, this. So it's more like Greco-Roman culture than Roman culture.
But then even beyond that, though,
being very significant.
But even beyond that, though, because once you got the empire, and when they conquered Egypt, they started adding in the Egyptian gods. You ended up with like a cult of Isis in Rome, and you started having
but you did have the different outside of the Roman deities.
It became infamous to the point where, like, well, eventually, obviously, it became Christian, but before that, you had, because like really, like the Roman Empire was a true melting pot in all sorts of ways, including religiously, because you got like Egyptian gods and goddesses. You got the cult of Attis, who was like this eunuch, castrated god who came from Asia Minor. You got Elagabalus, like going in and promoting all these like Middle Eastern Syriac gods. And
was there a state religion, or were people free to follow any of these?
The state religion was you had to offer sacrifices to like the deceased emperors, right? And that's why the Christians got in trouble. The Christians, nobody thought of persecuting Christians just because they were Christian. They persecuted the Christians because the Christians were the only or one of the few sects that refused to bow before like the tomb of the dead emperors.
And then Jesus came along and started instigating, becoming a nuisance too, and that put some attention on them.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's because obviously the Christians didn't exist before Christ, but the idea was that like the early, because like if you notice, like if you look at Christian history prior to the Emperor Nero, there generally was tolerance of Christians. But what happened was that the Christian sects generally, although they were very disunited early on, one of the few things that they united on was the notion that you should not offer sacrifices or pray to other gods other than the Christian Trinity. And that included you should not offer sacrifices to the Roman emperors, the dead Roman emperors. And so that's why they started becoming targeted.
Yeah, well, that makes sense.
And that was the way that
the society. That's going to catch attention on you. Just like these sovereign citizens that want to drive without driver's licenses and tags on their plates. That's going to catch attention.
Well, even with the persecution of the Christians, though, it was more nuanced than the history that one sometimes gets, because for much of the period of the Roman Empire, though, Christianity was legal, because under the I don't remember which one, but one of the five, what was called the five good emperors, they straight up just said, yeah, but now Christianity is legal because we don't want to, it's more trouble to persecute the Christians than it's worth. So for about 100 years, well into the empire, there was not a specific law against Christianity. And you actually had like a lot of the earliest works of theology being written during the pre-Christian, during the pre-Constantinian period in Rome.
They sound like the gays. They were just tolerated because it wasn't. At some point, it became counterproductive to continue persecuting. So they tolerated them, but they didn't really. They were still like not fully accepted citizens.
Yeah, that was about how it was for about 100 years. And then, you know, as the empire started, I guess, getting decadent and internally showing signs of falling
like it
apart,
is now.
What you ended up getting was, because this was the worst persecution, was the Emperor Diocletian. Because what he was doing is he basically, if you want to think of it this way, he was like Hitler or something. He was like a fascistic figure who was trying to be like the last gasp to preserve the traditional Roman way of life and re-empower the Roman Empire. So he launched the biggest persecution on the Christians. And of course, that didn't go so well, because after him was Constantine, who became a Christian. The empire became Christian after that.
Yep. And now we have the Holy Roman Catholic Church.
That was a pretty, I guess, dramatic flip.
God, you really do spend a lot of time thinking about Rome. I guess the meme was correct.
Well, when in Rome.
Yes, have we ever really left Rome?
Certainly, Rome has never fully left us.
No, it hasn't. I mean, it set the model for our current civilization.
Well, it's interesting. I've traveled to so many places, but I've never been to Italy. Never been to Rome. Constantine was still secretly worshiping. That's interesting because Constantine only became a Christian on his deathbed. Like throughout his entire life, even when he issued his edict of toleration, he still was a pagan. He still served and worshipped the pagan.
Oh, so at the last minute, he's like, "Let me just in case."
Yeah, that was basically his. I guess
right quick. Okay.
Which I might understand it because when you think about it, it's Pascal's wager, right? Like the pagan gods were more willing to tolerate you being a Christian than the Christian gods, or the Christian God was willing to tolerate you being a pagan.
Religion is so weird because it makes so much sense as a kid, and if you don't ever think your way out of it.
Yeah, certainly one of the issues that I've had, because I grew up Catholic, and one of the issues that I had, obviously, nowadays the church is very, I guess, tolerant, you could say, compared to how it's historically been. But even so, one problem that I faced always was, this question of, well, hang on, but if I'd been born in, India, I would have been a Hindu. And does that mean that God would have just created my soul to be damned or something?
You thought about
geographical. Yeah, because and to be fair, the Catholics are better about this, and I think have always been better about this than the Protestants. But like this idea that there's something like geographical about your destiny, right? Like, well, if really the only reason why I was Catholic was because I was born in a Catholic family. If I were from India, I would have been born into a Hindu family, and and a lot of Catholics out there would say, well, I would have just been screwed, right? Like my soul
isn't
needed to
the
be
concept of Catholicism that everyone's Catholic? It's this universalism. Isn't that what Catholic means?
I would say since Vatican II has become more and more like that, right? Like since Vatican II has become more and more sort of open and tolerant. But I think traditionally it was like most forms of Christianity. Orthodoxy was maybe the most nuanced just because it had its own unique theology about this. But I would say both Catholicism and Protestantism, the historic view was that, if you weren't a Christian, you weren't part of the church, and you were still stuck in your original sin to the point where you didn't really have any hope of salvation. So your eternal fate becomes the result of geographical circumstances of where you happen to be born, basically.
I'm not familiar. I'm not familiar with that viewpoint from my Catholicism. I don't know about the Protestant version of it, but I know that when the French people that I'm descended from left France and went to Canada and encountered the Indians, they embraced them as fellow. They assumed they were members of the Catholic Church because it was universal, and they embraced them as fellow Catholics, even if they didn't realize that's what they were. And that allowed them to form the relations that they did. And the Protestants, when they settled New England and all that, they slaughtered them. It was like if they couldn't convert them, then they killed them because they saw them as savages that needed to be brought to the light. And we saw them as existing members of this universal brotherhood.
Well, certainly what you did get, I think, even very early on, and you saw this much more clearly in the work of people like the linguist and anthropologist Wilhelm Schmidt, who's also a Catholic priest. What you saw was this notion of sort of trying to recover a primordial monotheism. So like what they would do would be they would go to like, say, like the Huron and the Iroquois, and they would notice, well, these people believe in this one like high ultimate. They might have had a number of different like spirits or whatever, like forest gods, but they had like one high ultimate creator god. And we're going to say, well, that means that they like us believe in one ultimate god. And they would have had, a story about like a universal flood. And they're going to say, well, that's similar to our story about Noah's Ark. Like, right. Like they try to look for parallels.
Oh yeah. I've heard of that before. And where was this?
Well, this is especially the Jesuits, right? Like the Jesuits, when they went in, they would always try and look for commonalities and similarities between the various traditions that they ran across. So they would say that like they would go to China and say that, well, your ancestor worship is similar to our, saint veneration.
Right, because I thought the whole concept of Catholicism was that it was a universal reality for everyone.
I think it's like because though of its universality, because it's such a large group, there were a lot of positions within Catholicism, right? So like you could see like the Jesuits, they would have been more inclusive, but then you get like the papal bull Unum Sanctum, which basically says like unless you're a baptized member of the Catholic Church, you're in hell after you die. Like that was the opposite extreme.
Oh, okay. Well, I guess I don't know. Do each different regions do it differently in Catholicism? Isn't it all centralized through the Vatican?
Ideally, but realistically, it's just like because I sort of have had a joke for a few years about like, if I ever, I guess, become eminent enough to have a law named after me. I guess I'm arrogant enough that I think about these things, but if I ever become such where I have like a rule or a law named after me, it would be, the TCPS law would be that whenever a new religion comes to a culture, it's the religion rather than the culture that has the most stark change, right? Like religion is more affected by the culture than the culture is by the religion ordinarily. And so what typically ends up happening is that so Catholicism might come to a people, but the people won't change that much. What will happen is that the religion as it's practiced will adapt to fit the culture. And we see that with like groups like the Mayans in Guatemala, for whom Catholicism is basically just like Mayan paganism with a slight, overlay of Catholic ideas and Catholic saints.
Yeah. Yeah, I can see that. I guess that works for some religions. I mean, I don't think there's an iron law of the relationship between religion and culture. I don't even know that they're completely separate. But I can see the point that, sometimes the culture influence will be stronger and sometimes the religious influence might override the culture, etc. Because religion is just another form of culture as far as I'm concerned. So it's just two cultures meeting and interacting.
Yeah, I would say that so what happens is oftentimes if a new religion comes into a culture, right? Say in most cases, the culture is initially more animistic and shamanistic, and then the new religion comes in. The new religion will come in, and what will typically happen is it will become integrated into whatever the animistic framework of the culture that already exists. So you see this with most forms of Christianity in the Middle Ages would have been still largely pagan, but just Christian enough to avoid being seen as heretics that would burn at the stake. And the same thing with Islam, especially in the hands of the Sufis, right? You get the Salafis, who are basically a modern group that were created by the British Empire, but you get these fundamentalists that are trying to purge anything traditional out of Islamic society, but then you get the actually successful Muslims who went in and actually converted people, the Sufis, and they tolerated a whole lot of traditional animistic and shamanistic ideas within Islam.
Okay. Yeah, but I think Daniel, when you say converted, I think part of what he's talking about is this process was some of that conversion. They didn't just convert them to Western European forms. they adapted the Catholic religion to their forms as part of that to make that conversion, to facilitate that conversion.
I think what a lot of people don't realize is that really the thing that de-Indianized Central America was not Catholicism. I mean, obviously they played a role. I'm not going to at all downplay the fact that
It was
It
cocaine.
was absolutely a genocide that happened. But the truth is that, a lot of people don't realize this, but when the United States fought the war with Mexico in the 1840s, the majority of the Mexican soldiers did not speak Spanish. The majority of them were indigenous people. And that's not because they drafted it's because the majority of Mexicans were indigenous people. The less than half of Mexicans spoke Spanish during the 19th century. The great collapse of, indigenous Central American civilization actually happened afterwards in the late 19th and early 20th centuries as the result of modernization, as a result of, socialist revolutions, which happened in the early 20s. It was modern post-conquest events that led to the collapse of these native civilizations. Ultimately, again, obviously, what the conquistadors did, absolutely horrible. I'm completely, I've done so many videos on my channel where I've, attacked trad Catholics for making light of the event. However, with that being said, let's be nuanced enough to realize that really that did not, none of these cultures went extinct. They're still not extinct. The Aztecs became the Nahua people, and there's still millions of them around now in Mexico, still speaking their native language. And
They don't still cut people's hearts out, do they?
What's up now?
They don't still cut people's hearts out, do they?
Not as a religious ceremony. The whole area has become very violent because of drug cartels and things like that.
Oh, okay. Wow. Are the Aztecs the cartel member? Is that what they became?
No, not specifically, but I would say that Mexico as a whole. Actually, it's interesting if you look at Guatemala is one of the most violent and dangerous countries in the world, but the Mayan part of it is not. The Mayan part of it is actually very safe. The crime rates of Highland Guatemala, where the Mayans live, they're about the same as they are in the safer states in the U.S. But then it's that the other parts, the lowland parts, which are not full of Mayans, are just extremely violent and dangerous.
Well, who are they? Indigenous Mexicans?
I guess they're mestizos, right? They're mixed Spanish and indigenous people.
Well, they sound like a very warlike people.
Well, the mestizos, I would say it's a cultural thing, right? They've always been basically a low caste. They've always been low on the totem pole. They've been higher than the indigenous peoples have been reduced to by the white man, but they've always been at the stage where they've never had much, right? They were created basically through rape and genocide. That's the reason why mestizos exist, and they've always existed to serve the.
How do you create a people through genocide? I thought that was the opposite of creating
through culture, through ethnic cleansing, because there's actual brutal killing genocide, but then there's also cultural genocide or ethnic cleansing, where what you essentially do is you're essentially.
Oh yeah, my people, they did that. They tried to do that to us. Yeah, I know what that is. But how? Oh, so they escaped the attempt at that. Is what you're saying? And was
the natives would have the people in the highlands. So the reason why there's still Mayans in Guatemala is because the highlands, being highlands, were more difficult to conquer, and actually they were conquered later. The last Mayan state didn't fall until I think the late 1600s. So they were more difficult to assimilate because of the geography. Whereas in the lowlands, where they did not have the geographic advantage, they were much easier to assimilate. And so they were ethnically cleansed and basically wiped out of existence to the point where
they were killed or they were assimilated into another culture?
They were both. a lot of them were killed, a lot of them were forcibly assimilated, and there's very few that would have been pure-blooded natives, because the ones that were forcibly assimilated the women got raped by these Spanish conquistadors and these Spanish people, and they just and they ended up creating what's called the mestizo caste, which is basically like a low caste of mixed people that historically would have been basically serfs serving the Spanish elite.
Okay. Well, yeah, I feel like we wandered a little bit from Catholicism, but that was all interesting.
Yeah, it is interesting. I would say I think, knock on wood, I think this verbal combat panel is going to be starting soon. So
Yeah, I was just looking it up myself. If he starts on time, you got 1 minute.
I think whenever it does start, I'll go check it out and I'll see if it's something that I'll see if they come up.
Yeah,
with
you definitely should. You definitely should, and I might even stream a little bit of it.
Okay, sounds good to me.
I wonder if that's the real Bill Hicks. I see him in the comment section all the time. I think it might be.
Oh, and the
It's. I mean, this seems like the type of place he would hang out in. This corner of the panel. I see him on the Crucible too.
oh, interesting. Well, he's in green. Does that mean he's like a paid member?
Yeah, it must be, or somebody bought a membership. That happens sometimes. Oh, sorry, rest of you. We're looking at Speakeasy's panel, waiting for it to start, which it looks like maybe it's not gonna be on time.
Well, a lot of times it's a few minutes later than it's advertised as being.
Yeah, sometimes.
I think I'm gonna go to the bathroom, and then I'll be back.
Be back here or on the easy panel?
I'll tell you what. I'll start back here, and then I'll see what they're doing.
So, are you leaving yourself on, or are you coming back?
I'm probably just gonna mute myself for now.
Okay, yeah, that's fine, because I'm gonna go grab a refill. So we're gonna take a little intermission.
Okay.
And we will be right back, folks. Let me see if I can find something to lead you. You know what? Easy starting. Let's just watch his opening, and I'll be right back.
Fair dealing provision for specific purposes like research, private study, education, parody, satire, criticism, review, and news reporting.
Look, they get into it. I fuck up the mood. They feel it, I kill it. I'm really just spilling the juice out of my shoe. But fuck with the fam, the gunning is something I do. I don't need a crew. Don't need selling my own, and I got something to prove. I'm on the loose. The pity get gritty. I light up the city like Zeus. Fuck with the move. Now fucking these bitches is really just something to do. Loving these bitches is nothing I do. Chasing that money need something to move. I fuck up the move. I ran out of place, so now I'm just much of your fool. Haters said they want me dead, now I see them red. Got me tucked in the tool. I fuck up the move. She wanted my pants the way that I dance, like the one from the wall. Now she in the trance, she grabbing the lance. She loving the groove. Back at it again, but not in advance. I hop on the coupe.
Sorry, it didn't. I hope that's not copyrighted. I think that's Easy's own music, so hopefully I didn't get a strike just because of that. But yeah, I won't. That's the intro. He hadn't started yet. I'm sorry for subjecting y'all to that. Oh, wait, Bill. I didn't know he left us. Let me see. I saw him in concert in Vegas. Wow. No, wait. Then I'm thinking of somebody else then. Oh. Yeah, the stand-up comedian. Oh, scratch that. Okay. I'm thinking of Doug Stanhope. I got those two confused. I thought they were the same person. Okay. Now I'm oriented. Yes, you're right, Daniel. I'm when I said Bill Hicks, I had Doug Stanhope in my head. All right. And he's still around. Okay. Whew. All right. Come on, Easy. Start your panel. Nobody wants to watch all this. You and Machine both. We want to see the content. All right. I think he's maybe starting. Let's see. Oh, there's more music. This one sounds.
After the divorce, what happens? The guy ends up working his whole fucking.
I want to say you cannot see. You specifically said whoever files for divorce
will have upper hand in getting custody of the children. I dispute that. I dispute that. Okay, then I win.
If you cut the earth in half, then it'll be like a crater. Okay, it's not this theory they show you when you Google flat Earth. They show you some bullshit where a ship's falling off a bit. All right.
How hungry are you?
I am starving. I'm a starving.
You look like you haven't eaten in weeks, bro.
I never affirmed that was true. In fact, I said that people were stupid and that it was a bit that you dumbasses wouldn't drop. But that's what she's famous for. What she's famous for is being a locale who people laugh at because they think that she has sex with you, Ben.
You join at 35. They say it's for physical reasons because by 35, your brain's fully developed. I think you have a little bit more critical thinking capacity at that point. But ultimately, if you are hitting a child at 4 years old, there's a difference between hitting a child at 4 years old and hitting a child at 18 years old.
I hate to inform you, but everything you know is not actually true in reality. It may be true on paper and, the studies that you've seen written by snowflakes, but that has nothing to do with reality.
I mean, I can say I'm an astronaut, but I stayed at a Holiday Inn Express last night. I mean, I'm just going to put that out there.
Is studies of reality.
Yeah,
Well, the research is wrong.
Should I share my wealth if I want? Any sort of victory should be up.
All right. God, why can't he just start his show? Maybe he's waiting on people. That's just clips from past shows.
I guess that's the thing. Like, if you want to start late, but you don't want people to know that you're starting late, you pull this stuff.
Yeah, that must be what it is. Because I just want to see tonight's episode. No, I don't go on VK anymore. Because it's popularity. Like there's no way I'm ever gonna win on there. It doesn't go by like how many points you make, like argument points. It goes by the impression, charisma more. I don't have enough charisma. But the main thing is, like I said, that I was almost on the same panel as Ben Thorpe last time, and I don't want to risk. I'm not interested in that. Nothing gets easy. Just that's not what I'm trying to associate myself with. But I do like his channel, and I do like Easy, and I encourage everybody to support him and watch him. It's just my own personal little boundary. Okay, Dave is on. Okay, here we go. Or wait, is he playing? These are clips, right? Or is this today's? No, these are still clips. He's still doing the clips. All right. We'll peek in when he actually starts. All right. That's pretty impressive, though, that he pulls all of those clips and composites. I don't even. No, like I don't go back and watch my thing and pull out clips. And StreamYard has a feature, supposedly, I can't figure out how to work it, but you can mark parts of the stream as they happen to go back and clip later. But I don't even do that. Is he still going with the clips? Yeah, it looks like. Anyways. Okay. Oh yeah, he's waiting for people. So TCPS, maybe if you show
Ooh,
up.
all right.
That'll
You know what?
jumpstart
I
the
think
show.
I'll do that.
He just put the link, so it's in the comment section.
All right, I'll be there.
Okay, and we'll let's see. He might be starting. Maybe we'll see our boy. Hang on. Brad, are you going up today?
Video games. I'm gonna have to throw all the video games out, I think. I mean, not for me. I wasn't playing the video games. I won't be mad about them being gone. Anyways, anyways, welcome. It wasn't me playing though. They don't even want me to play with them at these. Sometimes they just want to play by themselves.
Is he drunk tonight? He sounds drunk or high.
They just want me to do the hard parts for them. They're using me, guys. True, I would have to buy them again, Frankie. All right, welcome. Another Verbal Combat Friday. Every Friday, usually it's 9:30 p.m. Eastern Time to 2:30 a.m. Eastern Time, usually. But today we are starting late, and we're gonna push it a little later too. We'll see how it goes. You know, it could be I'll either do the same 4 hours, or depending how it goes, right? If it starts getting a little low, we'll put the voting in. I think we'll probably go 3. It'd probably be better. Anyways, run through the rules really quickly before we get started. Open panel, blood sports debate style. So, you know, very little moderation. You can roast each other. You kind of, you know, go buck wild with it. We also have a list of moves that the chat can do. I will run through these really quickly. We got 2 for the name change. You change anybody's name on the panel. The rules.
We can skip that part. It's similar to what Flo does on his. Yeah, that's the mistake I made. Not that I made. It's just my natural mode. I like dialectic and logic and argument and debate and conversation and yeah, a little bit of spurging. And they do more of the rhetorical, like forceful, who can out talk or out persuade each other. It's not, or like out rhetorically persuade, not logically persuade or dialectically persuade. I'm really not good. We see that on here sometimes. I'm not good when people. I'm really good when people can rationally lay out their point of view or their argument, and I can follow it and respond and ask questions and clarify and all that. I'm not good when they start pulling tactics outside of that. And that's when I have my reactions. Because to me, good faith is operating within that field of dialectic. And if you need to step outside of that, I'm alert to that, and it changes the way I think I wonder if that's not the source of a lot of these communication breakdowns. Is switching from one mode to the other abruptly or at all, and I can't make the switch because autistic people have a hard time with code switching, with change. There's this rigidity. It's like we don't have the agility that a lot of people have. It's like turning around a barge or an oil tanker in the middle of a river. It takes a lot of coordination and work and effort to make that switch. Some of us can't do it at all. Like there's some switches I can't ever make. So he's still explaining the menu. Okay. I want to see if TCPS made it on. I would consider doing a verbal combat from behind the scene, like coaching somebody. Like I'll be the little voice in their ear. Say that. Ask him this. Make this point. Call him this name. That kind of stuff. Without having to actually be on the panel. Okay, good. iFi will surely be there. That's one of his new hangouts. He won one night. He was up. There was this guy on there that was really good, like super intelligent. It was obvious that he was the best debater on the panel. So I don't know how iFi ended up carrying the day. All right, the people are coming on. Let's go.
Hey, welcome to the show.
What's up?
Animated effigy and traditional culture. I don't know. Did you step away? You did have your cam on. Did you step away?
How's it going?
Oh, there you are. How's it going, man?
It's going well. How are you doing?
Oh, we're doing good. We're doing good. Have you come here? I felt like when I saw you on cam, I felt like I've seen you before. I don't know if it was.
I was here. Well, I was on a debate panel you did a long time ago.
Oh, okay. Okay, that makes sense. Okay. Well, welcome to the show. What did any of you happen to? Oh wait, no, you wouldn't have because I only sent the private invites, not the. Okay, I got you. You wouldn't have known, so that's better this way. I like it more of a surprise, anyways. How you doing, animated? Did you come to get a crown today?
Fucking A. It's mine tonight, right? The vote is totally mine. I will finally get that secret list of OnlyFans slave girls that you populate your chat with. Yeah, it's gonna be total victory tonight.
Let's go. OnlyFans slave girls. All right. Yeah, I'm just out here slaving these chicks, you know what I'm saying?
I'm actually glad you started late because I was gonna get here late. So I was like, sweet, I didn't miss shit. Let's do it.
That's what's up. So it works out like that, right? All right, let's start with this one. What do you guys think about should parents be friends or mentors? I said why I put why not on every question, so I fucked that up. But
here I'm gonna do my debate.
That question seems like less of a two opposites thing because like mentor to me seems more like a friend. It's almost like a mentor is usually a kind of like friendly teacher that they seek outside of their family.
Yeah, but
right?
there's something
better
extra
question would be
about
like,
it
can parents be friends or do they have to be authorities? Right? Like, because I know some parents are like,
I get what you're trying to say. The word mentor is throwing you off. You're saying it should be more like, should parents be friends or authority? I get that. We can actually change it to that. I get what you're saying. Help people understand it. And what do you think? What do you think about that?
I think you have to find some kind of middle ground somewhere between there because I think that the extremes of both are pretty can be pretty shitty. Not totally. Some people make it work, but like if you're just a friend with your kid, they won't respect your authority, so they're not going to listen to your rules.
I'll let the kids
but if you're just an authority, your kid's not going to like respect
I've been
you
on
as
a
a
few
person
times.
and not
I've been
look
on
to you
2 or 3
as a person that they can trust because you'll just be a kind of
the
like
last one I
center
was
for
on
punishment.
was
So you kind of have to
Me and
keep
Andrew
striking a
Wilson
middle
got thrown
ground to
into a
where
head-to-head.
you have to use the carrot and the
we
stick.
recapitulated
with a kid.
our
I mean, at least that's been
original
my
debate.
experience with my kid.
Just
Like,
kept
thank goodness he's
looping
an adult now,
the
so I don't
same
think about this shit anymore.
topics we did last time.
Okay,
And I got voted off.
But there's definitely times where I think it's beneficial to be both. Not at the same time, of course, but you have to
we'll hear
find
TCPS's
times to be
rebuttal in
either.
now.
You don't want your kid growing up hating you. Just
Are you saying that the whole of life too, like from born till they're grown? That's what you're saying. You got to be.
Oh fuck no! As soon as your kid's an adult, like there's any
Are you in
number of
control
ways
of
to.
whether
I mean,
you're
you still
friends
you
with
want
your
to
kid or
be.
not? Doesn't
I
friendship
think the
just kinda
mentor role like is more apt when your kid's an adult, right? You want them to still have that trust and to always come back to you and stuff, but. Your kid's an adult now, and the quickest way for you to treat them as an adult is to be like, yeah, you're a person now, bro. I mean, I'm here for you, and I love you, and I'll always be there for you. But you're another dude, so go do your thing, other dude. You know, treat him like a person, and I found like a kind of deeper relationship with my kid once he kind of became an adult, and
that's
now we can bond on a
sounds like it's such a good dad.
Closer level. I think it's pretty fucking cool. I think.
That's privilege. He has father.
All right.
Son.
What do you think?
Oh, you can't really be an authority once they're an adult. You can try, but it really just ends up kind of like souring.
Growing up
kind of
with
be like,
with a
well, I don't think you should do that.
functional
And
father
like, yeah, okay.
that can help you, like,
okay,
assimilate to society is
traditional
privilege. People that have grown up.
Yeah, well,
with
my
it
perspective is going to
have
be
a benefit that the
colored
rest of
by
us
the
do
fact
not.
that I don't think it's actually normal to have one's that I don't think it's normal for the parents to be the only or the main responsible for the raising of a child. I think that that's something that was created by the
someone has
modern
to be, like,
nuclear
ultimately
family structure.
accountable,
If you
and
look
that should be the
at how
parent.
how humans always did things, it
Doesn't
was
mean other
allo
people can't
parenting networks, right? There's the old Yoruba proverb from Nigeria that says it takes a village to raise a child, because it really does.
I thought that was Hillary Clinton.
You're already messing up if you think that
originate it.
one or two parents
stole
are
it
going to
from
be
black people.
competently able to
I'm assuming he
deal
was
with
black.
all these
He's
issues.
Nigerian.
Really, I think
That's
that
my own
this entire
bias,
question assumes something assumes a situation where something's already gone deeply wrong. If you have these nuclear family,
See, I
units that
knew
are
he
really
was going to
not
make it
normal or
nerdy.
healthy
This
for
is
human
supposed to be
beings
blood
to be
sports.
isolated
Oh well,
into.
he'll get eaten alive and kicked off soon enough.
I mean, sure, but those kind of axioms were like back when. I mean, you're talking about societies that were like completely homogenous, right? Like one of the biggest problems why we can't think like that anymore is that
this might actually turn out to
especially over
be
here in America, we live in a pluralistic society.
rational conversation.
At base level, no one trusts other groups. Essentially,
this is the kind of stuff I'm trying to do here. How is
in some places it's starting to be more cohesive, but I always get a sense when people have this idea of like this kind of like overt kind of community aspect. It's just like some of these ideas just don't work with like enormously large amounts of populations.
Right? They don't scale up. That's what these little.
I grew up in a small town in the mountainous parts of the southern United States, and I grew up with, I would say, a form of allo parenting. I would say that those sort of communal values were still preserved in a society like that.
I mean, I could kind of say that in a way I was too. I mean, like I grew up in a trailer park.
Nice to meet
you. So people, while my dad was, riding the roads as a truck driver, my mom was there, and then we had other families around there.
I like this guy. Whoever this animated
and trust and stuff like that, and it was kind of like a small community of people who kind of had that kind of interwoven trust, like you're talking about, in a way.
And
but that just doesn't work in a lot of places, right? Like, especially not the way that modern like homes are built and structured.
Yeah, well, I would say you're right. Like, it doesn't work in a profoundly maladaptive society that's going off the rails, which is what's happening right now with our society. But I don't think that the solution is to be complacent with the fact that our society is failing either.
It's not. Okay, I'm gonna have to turn this off soon. Oh,
no, I think the thing you're talking about works best in like, and not rural. I'm gonna say rural areas, but not because they're rural, because of the aspects of them, right? That those areas are
They
mostly
can be
people who are going to be static
I've
and
created
staying in
those
place
kind
for
of
a long
communities
time.
in Vegas, New
Therefore,
Orleans,
they get to know their neighbors.
Seattle.
Their
It can
neighbors will be the
happen
same
online,
as
so
them
it
for a
doesn't
long
have to be
time. They own
rural.
that
It
land.
just
They'll be
has
there
to
for a
be
while. Whereas people in
a
cities where
manageable
there are
number of
enormous large
people.
groups of people are constantly moving in and out of places, apartments. It's not house living. Like it just.
My meetup that I had in New Orleans, it was an outdoor meetup. At one point, we were up to over 1,000 members, but we weren't all meeting at the same time. You'd have like maybe 10, 15 people go on a camping trip, another 10 or 20 go on a canoeing trip, and so they were little discrete events. But if you like gather us all in one space at one time, I doubt 1,000 would show up, but on paper on the site there were 1,000 people that were a member of the group. So even at that scale, it was manageable. Like, so I'm not sure at what point it requires a different paradigm or model, but I know that what TCPS is talking about and animated I've applied it to groups as large as 1,000. All right.
Playing itself, because I mean, you could argue the same thing about, why do we keep on playing this game of the rise of civilization when every time we also have the fall of civilization? Just because we do things doesn't mean that it's necessarily to our benefit.
That tells you it's subjective. Like some people see rise, some people
the
see
rot
fall.
can only
in
happen
here.
where the
It's not
things
happening
grow,
out here.
right?
Maybe
You're not going
specific
to have the rot
metrics
happen
you
from
can
a rural
show
area
rise and
because the
fall
money
on
and the
specific
power and the
items
culture is all made
civilization.
in cities. It's where everything kind of comes from.
Yeah, you're
It's
right.
It's not where everything comes from. The culture itself doesn't come from the cities. The richest cultures on earth are oftentimes, hunter-gatherer tribes or horticulturalist tribes living in rainforests someplace.
Nobody's
I
going
wouldn't
back
argue
to
that
the
their
woods,
cultures are somehow
dude.
less rich than, what we call civilizations, just because of the fact
that
that
is a
they're
fantasy of
more
mine. I would
exotic and
love
seem
to live
different
the
from us.
lifestyle you're talking about. I've even tried it, and I'm not even doing it. That's
definitely
how
using
unrealistic
a
it
different
is.
definition of rich in this.
Yeah, well, I mean, when I talk about a rich culture, I don't mean rich in a GDP sense. I mean rich in terms of it has something. It has like,
Do you think a culture like a still tribal culture is on par with like modern culture as far as like advancements and medicine and like do you think like those two kind of equal out as far as like, well, they have their own beliefs and stuff where therefore it's a rich culture, whereas we have everything that allows you to live past 40?
Oh, hang on. So wait. So you think that
like, what are we talking about here though? Like,
so do you think everybody traditionally died at 40 in a traditional culture?
No, not at all. I'm saying, what are we valuing here? Like, how are we comparing the two?
Valuing things holistically. I'm looking at the aggregate of society.
Holistic.
I'm looking at.
I'm a proponent of holistic approach
Yeah,
too. I use
I
it
would say
myself,
I am.
but
I
it
would
gets
say that my
very
years
fuzzy.
and years of
It's not anything you could
academic
always
study of
point to.
anthropology, you would have to look holistically in a culture in order to be able to do that.
So how holistically would a tribal culture compare versus a culture that's advanced over
I don't think he looks at the West
thousands of years and went from
or as
something
holistically
in
as
parity to that culture to
I think he
like walking on the moon.
overemphasizes
Like
the negative.
Like,
and
why are those two
underemphasizes the
comparable?
Well, I would say that every culture is comparable because they all have, they all do have similar origins in being tribal societies, and they all are distinctive cultures in the sense that they all have, their own traditions that bind them and make them cultures. They all have specific languages that vary between them. They all have shared values that like the members within the culture have that differentiate them from another culture. So I'd say in all those ways, you can say that like we, the Americans, represent a culture. The Ikari people of Papua New Guinea represent a culture, and they're two distinct cultures, right?
You do a whole series.
No, sure. I mean, I agree with what you're saying, but I just, as far as putting everything on parity, I don't know. I just don't know if I buy that.
Yep, I've said similar. Okay. All right. I don't want the whole night to be that. We talked to, over 3 hours. All right. I guess I'll wrap it up if I'm not getting a panel tonight. But Daniel, everyone else, Fatty. Say hi if you end up going on Easies. Thank you all for spending time here tonight. I don't know what to say. I definitely I enjoyed doing this. So we'll be here tomorrow, and we'll see what the weekend brings. You never know here. We rarely plan anything, and even when we plan, we don't ever. It never happens. We don't ever pull it off. So I think we're better working spontaneously and organically. So we will see what happens tomorrow spontaneously. In the meantime, there's Easy's panel. I'll drop the link once more, and probably some other panels. Okay, there you go. If you want to go see Verbal Combat. If not, you can go watch Frank play video games. Oh, Cynthia is streaming too. And she has something on her mind. She just started too. Maybe we can peek in on Cynthia. Oh, so yeah, Cynthia is an option too. I will post her link. This is her intro. All right, I don't know about copyright stuff. So she does this weird intro with all these football player clips. I don't want to play them because they have music in the back that sounds very copyrighted. Why do people do these long ass intros? People tune into panels to see the panel, to see the people. This is fluff and filler to us, or to me. I don't understand when I first started, when we rebranded as Outliers in Exile, the very first couple of episodes, I opened them with little short videos from YouTube. One was a Laurie Anderson clip. I think one was a Glenn Branca clip. Okay, now here's Cynthia. And I very quickly stopped doing them because I realized they ate up a lot of time at the beginning, and the momentum was people were ready for the show. I could always introduce a clip later.
Chat about. And one of my homies was supposed to come up and chit chat with me. Can y'all hear me? Can y'all hear me good? I kind of got it set up different, so I don't know if y'all can hear me. Or what do y'all think about? Thank you. I'm gonna get to my highs in a second. Let me get situated, guys. This is kind of an into prop live, and if you haven't hit that like button.
Oh yeah, see, let me go hit that like. Oh, I'm sorry. I thought I was sharing.
You, because y'all know today is the day that I went to go spend with my grandbabies, and OMG, something happened that I'm not sure how to take it. I'm not sure what I'm supposed to do in this moment. I have been stuck with what the fuck.
Oh, let's help her out here.
So I definitely want to talk about it while it's fresh in my mind, because it's like 2 hours there.
Yeah, tell us.
So I had 2 hours to really process. I want to talk about that and get y'all's opinion, because guys, this is something
give it to us.
This went different than I thought. What else? Anything else going on?
Oh, Cynthia, you can't set it up and then not give it to us.
How are you guys? Happy Mother's Day to all the beautiful mothers out there, whether you be a mother by birth or mother by nurture. Happy Mother's Day to you all. You're beautiful women, beautiful souls.
I thought it was on a Sunday.
It's our job as women to nurture.
Why is it Mother's Day today?
To take care of our youngins. Oh,
okay, this is
what
weird.
I want to talk to y'all. I'm trying to take care of the youngins. All right, I think I got everything kind of situated. It's kind of a weird
10
angle.
10 seconds to start this story,
but I needed to make it this way to not be so cramped in my space. I'm trying to get really organized. I'm a very organized.
Did she just tease us about this big story she wanted
Let me
help
see.
on?
Let me
about
start
little
off because I have a
grandbabies?
book that I write all of my lives on.
And then she's like,
So let me get that
what's
started.
up?
And then
Tell
I'm
me
going to
about
start
y'all.
with the hellos. Sorry, guys.
Okay, I
right.
can't. I've had all the. My brain can't take the setup and then the expectation and then the not meet it. I mean, I'm sure she'll meet it down the road. So if you want to watch Cynthia, there's her channel. If you want to watch Verbal Combat, if you want to go do something else, if you want to go sleep, if you want to go hang out on the Discord, you're a grown person with your own life. I'm sure you can figure out what to do with it. But if you want to see us again, we'll be here tomorrow, the same time, 2 p.m. Central. Like, subscribe, etc. And we'll see you then. Take care.